And hopefully we are live. I am going to check on the YouTube just to make sure. Yes, it looks like we are in fact live.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Andrea.
Hello, welcome everyone to our Stitch and Bitch Hugo nominations recommendations special. We are doing this sort of in place of our regular March live stream. This is also our regular March live stream, but we have two special guests, and we will be going through the Hugo Award categories and talking about the things that we have read, watched, consumed that are eligible, that we recommend. If you've made it here, then you have already found my channel. I am Kelsey of the Fancy Hat Lady Reads. We are going to start with some introductions and sort of a little bit of what you're reading right now. And if you are working on a craft, you can show that if you like. As well as, you know, who you are, where on the internet we can find you. Let's start with our guests. So, Paul?
Hey everyone, my name is Paul Weymouth, and I am so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, everyone. And I can be found, my channel is Paul Weymouth. Been on BookTube on and off for like 8 years now, and but I love the community, amazing people. I am currently reading, actually I just finished some things. I finished Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. It was a Greek retelling of a Greek myth of Medusa. And I just finished The Bruising of Aquila from Nassim Jamnia so that I could talk about it during this live stream. And hopefully I'm going to start episode 13 by Craig DeLuey tonight. It's a horror story.
That novella was the one we got you at Worldcon, wasn't it?
It was. I felt some pressure to like read it before the live stream. I was like, man, I need to read this. Yeah, it was good.
And Kristen, if you want to go next.
Yeah, I'm Kristen. I have a BookTube channel called Kristen L SFF Reader. I am kind of on a little bit of a break right now. I'm kind of figuring life out. It's a lot going on for me personally, so I'm hoping to get back to it. But yeah, I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, but I don't really post much. But yeah, right now I'm reading, I just started The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez, and I'm actually in the middle of a lot of other things. I'm also reading for the self-published science fiction competition right now, so working through the finalist right now, trying to focus on that, but also get in a few last-minute Hugo reads.
Let's see. If I'm getting a weird echo. Is anyone else hearing that?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, we're good now. Rachel, if you want to go next.
All right. My name is Rachel. My channel is Colonati, and that's where I'm most active because I'm pretty much not on Twitter anymore. And Instagram is just pictures of jigsaw puzzles. Right now, I am reading a bunch of stuff. I'm still working on Signal to Noise by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I just started Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. I'm like one chapter into it, so don't ask me if I like it yet. I just started reading it. And I should mention something I finished reading recently, which has nothing to do with SFF, but I'm going to mention it because this book just might have changed my life. It's How to Keep House While Drowning.
I have that at home from the library.
I read this and it took 2 days to read this, and it's literally just how to divorce housework, chores, stuff you got to get done from morality. It's like care tasks are not moral tasks. and how to like
Huh.
save your sanity if you are neurodivergent or dealing with depression, anxiety, lots of stress, not enough time, etc.
So what's the name?
It's How to Keep House While Drowning by Casey Davis. It's a kind of a new release. I think it was self-published around 2020, and it just came out as trad published very recently, I think. So
Just jotting that down for myself.
I may
For
I may have
reference.
spent like an entire afternoon just like brainstorming how to get my life in gear after I read this. Anyway, not SFF related, but a good read. And I am working on something today. It's a bit difficult to show it, but this floofy green mess is a sweater that I am ripping the bottom peplum out of so I can simplify it, because I can't wear it with this peplum on.
Also, Rachel, you and I are technically in the midst of a buddy read.
Oh, that's
that I think
right.
we've both sort of forgotten about.
I haven't forgotten.
But I definitely dropped it sort of in favor of trying to cram some
Yeah.
Hugo eligible stuff in advance of this live stream. But we are buddy reading A Song for a New Day by Sarah Pinsker, which I think I have certainly been putting off reading for like since I had an arc, so I had been putting off reading it since before it was released. So
Yeah.
buddy read is
It is
motivation.
good. It's one of the few Nebula Award winners I haven't read or tried to read before now. And I was putting it off because it's like a band novel. It's about musicians, and I never get along with that very much. But it turns out it's a pandemic story instead.
That was why I was
Yeah,
putting
I didn't know that. I was like, oh my goodness. It was published
I'm
in
sorry, I
2019.
thought you knew.
Yeah.
Rachel, were you done with your introduction?
Yes, sorry, I waffled on there for a
No,
while.
that's fine. Partially my fault too. Let's move on to Rhea.
Hello, yes. I am Reija. My channel is The Bookfinch, where I talk about science fiction and fantasy, and also comics and manga and all of that jazz. Currently, I am also on a little bit of a hiatus due to various things, but I should be coming back in the next week or so. And I'm actually currently reading an e-arc of all things. I don't usually accept arcs, but this sounded interesting. So it is Life Beyond Us, an original anthology of SF stories and science essays, which is edited by Julie Novakova. And it has like stories from, for example, Mary Robinette Kowal and let's see who else was in here. Primi Muhammad and Poki Takach, etc. And the idea is basically that it has like all of these like a science fiction stories revolving around a specific concept, followed by a science fiction like non-fiction essay explaining that scientific concept. And the whole idea was so fascinating that I wanted to try it out, and it's actually been really interesting so far. I'm like 2 stories deep, and I will say that like I like that the non-fiction essays are like they don't talk down to you, like they're not dumbed down, but they are like engaging enough that even if I don't have any idea of the like concept in question, or I haven't heard of it before, like it makes it enjoyable to read about it. So that's been really nice, and it's like so far has been really, really good.
I love that. Very cool.
I need
Yeah.
to get that. Yeah.
Did we lose Kristen?
We did. I've sent her a message to see if we can get her back. I'll let you know. Oh, it looks like she's back. Kristen, you're back.
Sorry about that.
Di, do you want to do an introduction and what you're reading if you're working on something?
Yeah, so my name's Diana. My channel is Bookish Di. I am unfortunately for myself still on Twitter, where you can find me there. And in terms of reading, I've been like doing a lot of rereads. So I've been starting a reread of the Mercy Thompson series and the Alpha and Omega series by Patricia Briggs, which is interesting from a this was my life when I was in undergrad and right out of undergrad. And just like looking back on that, I recently reread The Hunger Games. And then for new stuff, I read How the Word Is Passed by Clint Smith. And it's a really, really good nonfiction book talking about the history of slavery and how it impacted American history and how intertwined it is with American history. So I really recommend that. And then I just started The Mimicking of Known Successes by Melka Older. So I'm not super far in, but I am enjoying it so far. And then in terms of what I'm working on, I am working on my mosaic shawl. I have to unpick my current row, however, because I messed up somewhere and I don't know where. And so it's just easier for me to start the row over.
Been there.
So I guess we've introduced everyone except me. If I'm going to share what I've been reading, I've been aside from the buddy read with Rachel, I've been trying to read some YA books so that I'll have stuff to nominate for the Lodestar. What I'm in the middle of right now is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O, which is a retelling of a Korean myth, legend, folktale. It's I'm not going to pass judgment on it yet overall, but it feels like the type of book that I would have particularly really enjoyed as a teenager. It's got the sort of like pacing and plotting that I really enjoyed when I was that age. So that's making me feel very positively about it. And I am not crafting anything right now. So if we are done with the introductions, I will hide that banner. If you are unaware, the nominating period for the Hugo Awards has just opened. If you are a member of this year's Worldcon or of last year's Worldcon, you should be eligible to nominate. If you believe you are eligible to nominate and have not gotten email communications from the Chengdu Worldcon team, check your spam folders. They've been having some issues. But nominations are open and are open through the end of next month. And
also, you should check Chengdu's if you haven't received any communications and can't find them even in the spam. Check Chengdu's like official Twitter, because they have all the like relevant email addresses that you can contact for memberships there as well. So just in case that you can't access their website, because I know that for some people it has been difficult to access their website also due to like browser plugin errors and VPN connection errors, etc.
yeah, there have been some issues. I don't know if we want to talk about any of that now, or if we sort of just want to.
Maybe later if we have time, but
Yeah.
let's focus on the nominations.
All right, so we're going to start from the bottom of the ballot and work our way up to the top where Best Novel is. At the bottom of the ballot are 2 awards that are technically not Hugos. We're going to start with the Astounding Award for Best New Writer, which is an award for authors whose first published works were in the previous 2 years. So authors who were first published in, oh gosh, what year are we talking? 2022 and 2021. Those are the years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. This is definitely a category where I'm hoping to get some recommendations of authors to check out, and I will be taking notes.
Gonna look at the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I think For the spreadsheet, one of them, Sasha Lamb, isn't eligible, but that's because they had a novella come out from Book Smugglers Publishing several years ago. So I think that would have been their first qualifying work.
I want to mention that the spreadsheet we are talking about is the Lady Business spreadsheet that is on, it's a Google Docs or Google Sheets or whatever it is. And I've linked it in the description of this video if you are looking for that. It's a recommendations of eligible works spreadsheet for the Hugos. And anyone can edit it. So if there are things that you are excited about that you're hoping other people will check out that are Hugo eligible, you can add them to the spreadsheet. Yes, that is, I'm gonna pin Renee's comment there. Yes, Renee is involved in the spreadsheet.
Yeah, and Renee also has a spreadsheet set up for any works published in 2023 that you would like to remember for next year.
So the Astounding Award, we're going to go, the order we are on the screen switched around a bit when Kristen ducked in and out, but I'm still going to go from the bottom to the top and start with Paul.
Okay. So I have not read the 2 books by this person, but I know that a lot of you have, and it's probably the person that I'm going to nominate just because I think they're doing great work, and I think romance and science fiction is huge, and fantasy is huge this last year, and that's please correct me if I mispronounce any name. Everina Maxwell. Sorry.
Definitely on my list too.
Yeah.
This is her second year of eligibility. She was nominated last year, right?
Yeah.
Right. So authors are eligible for this award for 2 years in a row, and most years you get some people who've been nominated in the previous year along with some others. So Rachel, do you have anyone else to add to the list?
I would also plug Everina Maxwell because I've read both of her books and they were really good fun. I will also throw in Adam Oyabanji, who's also in the big spreadsheet. I read his debut novel, Breaking Day, and thought it was quite interesting. It was a good debut.
Kristen?
Okay, sorry, I'm muting. I am getting over a cold, so I'm like doing lots of tea and cough drops and hoping I'm going to be okay and muting a lot. But I haven't thought a whole lot about this particular category yet. I think right now on my radar, I'm looking at Sun Yi Dean, who wrote Book Eaters, which I'm noticing has a note on the spreadsheet that she may or may not be eligible. If she is, I'm going to nominate her. I'm also considering Olivia Blake, which I'm also not sure is eligible because her books, The Atlas Paradox and The Atlas, I'm forgetting the name right now. It was one of those deals where it was self-published and then Tor picked it up and edited it and republished it. And then she just had a sequel come out this year also. So it's like unclear if it's eligible for best novel or astounding. But I really enjoyed those books. So those are kind of the only 2 that I'm thinking about right now.
Sending you healing vibes and wishing you lots of good tea. Rhea?
I'm actually Nassim Jamnia is probably going to be on my radar for the astounding, because like I'm also like currently in the process of reading Bruising of Quilwa, and that's like doing some interesting things. So would be interested to see them on the ballot, and also most like because Bruising of Quilwa has actually gotten quite an extended amount of hype, I think, because it was talked about a lot in the panels, for example, in Worldcon Chicago. So I'm sort of like hoping kind of that it makes the ballot.
And Dai?
Yeah, so I'm also gonna do Nassim Jamnia for The Bruising of Kilwa. I would also she's on the spreadsheet. Sarah Al-Arifi for The Final Strife. It's a debut epic fantasy novel. I thought the world building was really interesting. It had like some of your typical like debut novel pacing problems, but I really liked the character. She does some really good work with an unlikable female character, which I do love. And where she left off makes me really intrigued for book 2, which is coming out in May. And I would also add Jironjie Zhao. This is going to be their second year of eligibility. They published Iron Widow in 2001. And then last year they had Zachary Ying and the Dragon Emperor. So yeah, those are some of the ones that I'm currently considering for Astounding.
For me, in terms of things I've actually read, I think the only person I've actually read who's eligible for the Astounding is Everina Maxwell. But in terms of things on my TBR, I think Travis Baldry is eligible for Legends and Lattes. That was originally self-published, but it was self-published this year. That was a quick self-published to trad-published pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he had any other previously published fiction. And then one of the YA books that I have out from the library in hopes of reading it for like Lodestar eligible works is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy I. Lin. I'm forgetting the name of the second book, but both books in that duology were published this year, and the first one
was last year.
Last year. Thank you.
Sorry.
This year is pretty fresh.
We are discussing. Oh, Leia Kitty.
Yes, we have our first official cat sighting.
First official Leia Kitty cat sighting.
Leia's face looks so derpy.
Another debut from last year that's on my radar, where both books in the duology were published last year, is Daughter of the Moon Goddess and sequel by Su Lin Tan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I have read Daughter of the Moon Goddess, and I didn't love it as much as some people. Like, it was enjoyable, but I had some issues with it.
So I don't know whether or not I'll get to any of the books on my TBR, but those are some that I think are eligible that are on my TBR that haven't yet been mentioned.
I have one more suggestion.
Yes.
That's Isabel J. Kim. I didn't realize until Renee's amazing spreadsheet was here that I just assumed that they've been writing for years, but they haven't. And I've read probably 4 stories from them last year, and they were really good stories. Plausible Realities and Probable Dreams from Lightspeed, Massage Lady at Mujang Road Bathhouse, and from Clark's World, and Clay from Beneath Cecil Skies were all very good stories. So Isabel J. Kim, check her out.
I have one more that I also forgot,
Yes.
and that's Gemma West, who wrote Face last year. I really enjoyed it. It was a short novel, kind of like dystopian and almost experimental. It was like written in a very unique way. So I would definitely nominate Gemma West.
And because I'm writing things down, how do you spell that?
Joma, and then West, like the direction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always enjoy as a reader and a voter when short fiction authors make it on the Astounding Award list, because I've rarely heard of them, and I'm happy to be introduced to them with things that are quick to read. So definitely love the recommendations for short fiction writers. last chance for the Astounding Award. Anyone else want to talk about the Astounding in any way before we move on to the Lodestar, where I'm sure we will have discussions? Okay.
Lodestar, go.
Lodestar, go. There's the little banner out the bottom. I did not know before today that you could do these banners in StreamYard.
They're really nice.
They're nice. So, Paul, do you want to kick off our Lodestar discussion?
Sure. So last year was odd for me. I didn't read any young adult books last year. I usually read a few, but I'm going to recommend a middle grade book. I believe middle grade you're still eligible to nominate them. And it is by Esme Sims Smith. It is called Sir Callie and the Champions of Helston. And it is a non-binary main character that goes to a capital city and becomes friends with other people that are ostracized in their society. And they're looking to try to change people's minds and stamp out bigotry in the kingdom. And it was phenomenal. I thought it was fantastic.
I don't know why, but whenever you talk about that book, it makes me feel like it's like Alana retold with a non-binary character, and I'm like really into that.
So there is a pull quote on the front of the book from Tamara Pierce.
Really? Okay.
I kind of want to read that now, also because personal interest in all characters that are non-binary, especially for young readers. So
excellent. Rachel?
Hang on. I gotta recommend to my library that they buy this book.
Oh yeah. I also like Paul, can you put the name in the
chat? I'll put it in chat, yeah.
Yeah. I can also immediately request it to my library.
Yeah. I am never entirely sure what the age cutoffs are for Lodestar, and so I'm kind of guessing about these two, but I believe they're both YA. So I am definitely going for Bitter by Akwekia Emezi. I know Pet, and this is sort of a prequel to Pet, that was a nominee in years past, and it's fantastic, all about revolutions and how people can choose to be activists in different ways. And then also Akata Woman by Nnedi Okorafor, which is the third in that series, about a young Nigerian American girl who discovers that she has magic. And it's really her coming of age story and growing up and exploring her magic. And the series has just gotten better and better so far. So.
Well, I only read one eligible work last year, and that was The Golden Enclave. So I will nominate that.
That is not eligible. That is not eligible. That is adult. That is published by Del Rey. You take that back.
I definitely take it back. I'm joking. I did not read any eligible Lodestar books this past year.
My heart skipped a beat. That was awful.
That was epic. Awful. That was epic.
Did you plan that?
Put out into the universe.
Oh my god, that was my poor heart.
And I see Renee laughing it up. And Renee has been the recipient of one of my rants about as the keeper of the spreadsheet.
We've definitely had some of these rants on here before, and I'm with you all the way. But before we get to you, though, Rhea.
Yes. So I have a couple. So first of all, Sophie and the Bone Song by Adrian Tooley was actually really interesting in terms of I had huge expectations for it, then started reading it, and it wasn't quite meeting my expectations, and then it's sort of turned me around back to its side. So it was a real roller coaster, and it's actually a really interesting it first of all standalone sapphic romance, and deals with a lot of sort of toxic parenting where the person who's had this like relationship with their parent slowly realizes that that relationship was abusive. And that's something I think that um, doesn't always really get talked about in my opinion. Like you always have either very like sort of positive parental relationships or like sort of like negative abusive relationship where the person is fully aware that the relationship is abusive. But this was, I think, very sort of like like fresh in terms of like you have this character like having to come to the realization that, wow, all of these things that I experienced that I thought were good for me, that I've revered and I've like focused my entire identity around these things, were completely and utterly toxic. And also this idea that you don't have to forgive your parental figures for that stuff. So that's definitely going on my ballot. Really enjoyed it.
What was that one again?
Sophie and the Bone Song by Adrian Tooley. So Sofi is how you spell the name. I will put it in the chat as well. And then Bitter by Akweke Emezi is also on my list because I really enjoyed it. It's actually really interesting considering that Pet is sort of like middle grade, and then Bitter kind of straddles to the YA side, and there's like some hints that a third book may be happening later on down the line with another character that was introduced in Bitter that I think that maybe I wonder if that's going to be more like adult oriented then.
Interesting.
I hope so.
And also another book that I have not read yet, but I'm planning to still, is Lake Lore by Anna Marie McLemore. That's on my like TBR pile for like pile of possibilities for still that are eligible for nominations.
I have read Lake Lore. I will talk about it in a bit, but first, Die.
I also am actually going to talk about Lake Lore because that is one of the eligible books that I read, and I am planning on nominating it. It's just this really beautiful book about two genderqueer, non-binary trans teens and them being also neurodivergent and just dealing with past traumas and coming to terms with their identities and healing. And I really love Anne-Marie McLemore's writing, and this is a really good example of that. I also listened to the audiobook for this, and it's narrated by Vico Ortiz, who plays Jim on Our Flag Means Death, and Avi Roque, and the audiobook, it was also just really beautiful. Some other books that I read and plan on nominating, In the Serpent's Wake by Rachel Hartman. This is the sequel to Tess of the Road, which I adored. And I didn't initially, like, I did enjoy In the Serpent's Wake, but I didn't initially love it as much as Tess of the Road. But the more I sat on it and the more that I thought about it, the more that I loved it. It's, if Tess of the Road was about forgiving yourself and healing yourself from past trauma, this is more about how do you forgive others? Should you forgive others? And it kind of goes what you were saying, Rhea, with Sophie and the Bone Song, where you're not obligated to forgive someone who hurt you, which I appreciated. And it also has some really interesting commentary on colonization and the roles that we play in it. So I love that. I probably will also nominate Sea Sparrow by Christian Kishore. I did read that and really liked it. And then some books that I haven't read yet, but I am planning on reading before the nomination period closes. Sorry, I'm looking at this. The Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas. This is his new YA fantasy book that's inspired by Mesoamerican mythology, and I really love Cemetery Boys, and I've heard good things about this. And then I also plan on reading Rust in the Root by Justina Ireland. This is that's like a 1930s set YA fantasy book.
I just want to, because I scooped her up and she's trying to get away.
Jamie!
Make sure you all
Jamie
see
girl.
the jammy pants before she leaves.
Yeah. Her twin Leia just skedaddled into a different room, so
We will not have twinsies on camera at the same time, but we do have a jammy pants.
She looks so displeased.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jam, Miss Jamboree.
Miss Jamboree. Okay, you may go if you like. You may go if you like. You're not obliged to stay any longer.
I love that she very slowly went.
Yes. I want to pin, there were a couple of comments sharing the titles of books that have been mentioned. This was one. And this was another, in case you were looking for those book titles. We also have a couple of recommendations of YA books in the chat. I've not heard of this book, Fraternity. Has anyone here read that?
No, but I will look it up. What is this?
It sounds interesting.
And then we have another recommendation for Unraveler, which is definitely one on my TBR. Frances Harding is an author I really like, and this one is her newest. It seems really interesting.
Okay, holy hell about Fraternity, a queer paranormal story set during the still raging AIDS crisis. Like it's a boys school, like boarding school, like dark academia, paranormal YA story.
I'll have to
Interesting.
check that out.
I will put it on my to read list.
I absolutely want to second the recommendation for Lake Lore. Anna Marie McLemore is one of my favorite writing YA authors. This is absolutely beautiful, magical realism. And I feel like they're an author who is not necessarily so much on the radar of the SFF community. I see their books recommended more often on lists of like queer YA as opposed to like YA SFF, which is great. But I would also like if the, you know, Hugo nominating body was reading and possibly nominating their books for the Lodestar, because every year that they've had a book out that was Lodestar eligible, I've been hoping it would end up on the short list, and it never happens. So this year maybe. And then I realized that the books that I wanted to read that are YA books, sort of a lot of them had a water theme. So I started reading The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, and I was like, I'm reading this right after Lake Lore. Both of these are magical underwater worlds. And then the next book I want to pick up is Sea Sparrow. And then I also want to read In the Serpent's Wake, but I don't know if I'll read In the Serpent's Wake in time, because even though like I loved Tess of the Road so much, but I read it without reading the previous books in the world, Seraphina, that duology, and I always intended to go back and read those books before the second book came out, and I failed. So I don't know if I will manage to do that in time, but like most of the YA books on my radar have this water theme. Like, I don't know. Should I go with it? Just read all the water books?
Yes.
Yeah.
But also I have Bitter out from the library. It's the second time I've had this out from the library. I loved Pet so much. Definitely want to read that. And I have A Magic Steeped in Poison out from the library as well, which I mentioned when we talked about the Astounding. I also own a copy of, where is it? This one, Strike the Zither by Joan He, which is
that looks so beautiful.
It's very pretty. I have not heard of this.
I think
I
it's going to be
have that out from the
duology.
library right now.
Okay.
I think this
just
is going to
jotting
be a
that.
duology. Both of her previous books were standalones, but this is the first in a series. And this is a retelling or reimagining of I forget which
I think it's the Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Romance of the Three Kingdoms. That's right.
Ooh.
So a Chinese historical fantasy retelling, and also the one middle grade book that came out last year that is very high on my TBR priority is Osmo Unknown and the Eightpenny Wood, because a new middle grade from Catherine M. Valenti is always an event in my books. I have like personally
I kind of want to get to that one. I have not heard anybody talk about Osmo. And
Wait, Catherine M. Valenti has an eligible YA or
Middle
middle grade book.
middle grade, yeah.
yeah.
What? I have not heard of it.
It's because I haven't read it yet, and you're relying on me to tell you about it, I'm sure.
The cover looks so cute. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the cover is great.
It's
It
really
looks
cute.
incredible. I think it's journey to a magical afterlife land type of quest story. It looks great, and it's not gotten very much attention. I have personally like mixed feelings about middle grade books on the Lodestar shortlist. On the one hand, yes, absolutely, they are eligible. I'm not mad at them showing up. On the other hand, like, it is called the award for best young adult book. Just for the record, YA and middle grade books are also eligible in best novel. And I sort of wish there was more clarity, because there, as far as I can tell, there just isn't a whole lot of clarity on what exactly counts for the Lodestar, and I think this is where we get some of the confusion that led to an adult book winning the award last year.
I'm still reeling from Kristen's fake out.
It was a good fake out.
It was a good fake out, but I was like, at the same time, I was like, oh no, you didn't just say that, and also looking at Di like, is Di gonna go off the handle?
Look, I'll be like in my 60s and 70s, and I'll still be mad about it. I hold grudges.
Like, we'll be 10 years from like Chicago, and you'll still mutter in your sleep like, God damn, Naomi Novik.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't have that happen again this year.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, knock on wood. I just knocked on my table and rocked my whole.
Yeah, I just knocked on the book throne.
Yeah. Do we have anything else to say about the Lodestar before moving on?
We
might have to move on, because
Yeah.
like there's so many categories.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is, like, we didn't mention her because I don't know if anyone here has read her stuff, but I would not be shocked if Charlie Jane Anders ended up on the shortlist again. Which I'm not angry about. She is actually writing YA, but she is one where I fully expect to see her book on the shortlist once it comes out.
Yeah, that's why I'm also wondering why I wouldn't be surprised if Catherine M. Valente made it either, because like she's also kind of a Hugo darling in terms of like getting on the short lists at least. Not necessarily winning.
Has anybody checked out Illuminations by Ursula Vernon yet? Because I don't know if that one would be considered YA or not.
I haven't.
That was self-published at the end of 2022. I think it came out in December. And T. Kingfisher / Ursula Vernon is also another very popular one for this category.
Yeah.
So
The Hugo Darlings Association.
The Wayward Children. Like, there's another one. But They don't
Usually
get
But
get
those
nominated
are
for
those are adult. Also.
Yeah, and those are also novellas, so I don't think those would be in
Yeah.
this category.
This is
Okay.
like novel length category.
Okay.
If we are ready to move on, next we have the fan categories: fan artist, fan writer, fan cast, fanzine. Are there any of those that we want to sort of separate out and talk about on their own, or do we want to bundle them all?
I think bundling them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately not very well versed in like a lot of like I feel like fan writing is something that I'm starting to like actually get more of a grip on this year. Like I've actually like followed some like fan writers on Twitter and like followed their blogs and stuff. Um, Elise fan writer is usually like it's similar to fan cast in terms of like content. It's commentary, but it's like for example bloggers and stuff are like eligible for fan writer category. It's like commentary on the genre, book reviews, just commentary on news and stuff.
Although this question makes me wonder if fan fiction is technically eligible. No? Yes?
I don't think so.
No, because first of all, it is not commercial, and technically, it's kind of in the gray zone whether it's sort of like because it's like you are essential. Even though there's original fan fiction, there's also like people are writing without permission in someone else's IP. So there's a sort of like a copyright gray area, and it's
But
non-commercial
yeah.
and published in a non-commercial venue.
AO3 won Best Related Work some years ago,
Yeah.
but as a platform. There
Mhm.
was a lot of
Yes.
confusion about that. People who thought that that anybody who had published on AO3 was finalist. That's not true.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
No,
but
no,
I
the-
also did love that joke just because it made certain segments of the Hugo fandom mad.
Unfortunately, I think there were some people who genuinely believed that they were finalists. They were not.
Yeah.
Oh. In terms of the fan cast category, for the record, we believe that Stitch and Bitch is eligible in fan cast in addition to each of our individual channels that produced enough content within the past year. So this is our eligibility post.
And that's all she wrote.
That's all. We're moving on.
But basically, for Fancast, any podcast episode, any booktube channel, any kind of like commentary video channel who is like doing commentary on SFF specifically, and has produced more than four videos or 4 audio episodes essentially during 2022 is eligible.
Which means that anybody who watches BookTube has so much choice.
Yes, you have so much choice.
I nominate
in
different
who to
booktubers
nominate.
every year just because there are so many.
I rotate too.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I have like 5 slots, and each year I nominate different people, just in the hopes that one day someone gets on. Like it's
I
just
will
like
say one of the things that for me is kind of frustrating in the fan cast category, and I think it's something that we talked about, maybe not on Stitch and Bitch, but offline, is that it feels like a lot of the fan cast nominees are actually like authors who have their own podcasts.
Oh yes.
And it's really frustrating because I think that there is a role for, or like there's a place for that, but I don't necessarily feel like it should be a fan cast category. I feel like that is like it could be separated out. Like for me, fan cast is something like Jay and Miles explain the X-Men, because like they do commentary on all of the X-Men and they've been going on for years and it's incredibly entertaining. Or BookTube, where they're providing commentary, not Charlie Jane Anders and Annalee Newitt's on their podcast, which, you know, it's great. They've won, but I also wish they would recuse themselves.
There's also just this thing that this doesn't happen in the fan writer category. The fan writer like category always has like people who are like independent bloggers who are not like they may have some, you know, industry contacts in terms of like getting like for, you know, to interview people and stuff like that, or like being in the convention circuit so much that they know people, but they're usually not authors. They just run their blogs and they do their writing and stuff like that. But in the like podcast, like in the fan cast category, there's seemingly a more like this weird thing where you have a lot of like basically people with professional industry ties, and also like you could argue that whether someone who works as an editor in a professional like major publishing house and has all these contacts, like what like type of commentary like are they able to essentially like separate their sort of fan status from their professional status in that
I'm
case?
sure. I mean, professionals are allowed to be fans of
Yes.
other professionals' work, and that's why I think it's going to continue on, is because you can't say that they're not.
Yeah,
fans.
and that's why it's
And
sort of like
because
this gray
the
area.
product, the eligible work itself is a fan work, you know, if they're not
Yeah.
doing it in a
But
professional
they come with built-in audiences, which mean that they're it's not an even playing field. Let's say that.
Yes.
They have name recognition.
Let's just say that someone with someone who does a podcast from their living room with their like iPhone and a little ring light and basically, you know, a minimal setup, as opposed to someone who can not only afford to have like a full like kind of studio environment decked out, but then also has the connections to invite guests and stuff like that. There's a different like playing field.
Well, I think like you can invite guests as a independent non-author fan
Yes.
cast or non-author booktube channel, because like
yes, you can, but it takes like, I'm just saying that it takes more like how do you say, you don't automatically build those connections. And some of the people who have been nominated in the past are industry veterans who have like had years and decades building these.
Yeah.
Well, like Annalie and Charlie Jane Anders, they were nominated and won a Hugo for their podcast in the first year that it ran. In the first year, whereas I think the first booktuber who was nominated took 6-7 years to get there. It's very different.
Yeah, we have all been on booktube for like how many years?
I've been on since 2017.
I'm probably the youngest, and I've been on a couple years.
Yeah. So, and I think all of us would say that we've not necessarily built like an overwhelmingly pervasive, you know, like fan base or whatever in the SFF.
There's also like this idea of who the audience is, I think.
Right,
because
BookTube does reach a very different audience from what I think of, at least, as like the core of SFF Worldcon Hugo fandom. I think, I mean, I've been pleasantly surprised in the past going to Worldcons how many people seem like they do watch BookTube, but the majority of people who watch BookTube are not.
I mean, there's also like what you even want from the fan categories. Like for fan writing, for example, I'm looking forward to like sort of like commentary on the goings on in the genre. let's say was it the unofficial Hugo book club is something that I've been reading recently for their commentary. So that will probably be my nomination for fan writer for the fan writer category. Unfortunately, can't say that I have been too immersed in that side of things. I've kind of like made a note of myself that I want to start immersing myself more in the fan categories, because it's very important to me to keep them going, because a lot of these categories are constantly under threat of being kind of like they ceasing to exist because of like the lack of nomination and voting, because of the like existing Hugo rules in the Hugo categories.
For sure.
Can I insert a comment here that is a little bit about the fan categories, but also about the Hugos broadly? Is that in the past, I have relied heavily on Twitter for the dissemination of eligibility posts. And I think this is something that, for me, affects the fan categories more than the fiction categories, where, you know, I know what year a book was published in. I can pretty much figure out if it's eligible and in what category. Although you know, for things like series and where word count is an issue, or like, was this changed from its previously published state when it was, you know, published again traditionally or whatever. Those are things where author eligibility posts are really helpful for me. But
yeah,
especially in the fan categories, like I sort of don't even know where to think to start unless I see people sharing other people's eligibility posts somewhere. And so this is something where the sort of decline of Twitter as a universal sharing place.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Is heavily affecting my ability to think of things to nominate in these categories. I don't know if anyone else feels that way.
Yeah, especially the like that is why I'm also like relying pretty like, well, not. I've actually been really proud of myself in terms of like fiction reading, that I don't have to necessarily rely on the Lady Business spreadsheet, but on other categories. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like Astounding, all of the fan categories, related work, all of that. I am going to be relying on the Lady Business spreadsheet, which is like, honestly, that's probably its own, like, you know, like a fan work that probably should be eligible for something.
I will also say, though, I feel like I've seen less activity in the spreadsheet this year than in previous years. Like, for how far we are along in the year and the fact that nominations are already open, I feel like there are lots of categories that are just like not very full of recommendations yet, in terms of how many little anonymous symbols I see on top every time I open it. Like,
but I also wonder if that part.
I wonder if that's because we're not sharing it as much.
Well, Renee is also saying Twitter dying did not help. That's one thing. And also Chengdu not communicating nomination periods and stuff like that is one thing. Because how can you even key on whether you like what's eligible or not if you're not even gonna know if the Hugo Awards are happening, or like they're like, so there's things.
Or if you don't know what it takes to become eligible to vote or nominate, because the communications about how to purchase memberships were not clear, or et cetera.
Ellie says that a lot of booktubers I know outside of this group here don't really seem to talk about Hugos at all, and I'm actually wondering if that's going to be changing in the future, because like I do know a few pretty relatively prominent booktubers who have like recently started like taking an avid interest in the Hugo Awards, and specifically like participating in like nominations and stuff. So that might be changing like because also like slowly they're like, well, we are vocal about it every year, so you know, like if you're vocal about it, like it, like little by little ripples will start going across the community.
Yeah, and that's like why I started my channel, is because I wanted to hear booktubers talk about it. So I'm like trying to encourage people to talk about it.
So for me, with fan writer, I really like Maria Haskins. I think they have the best blog for reviewing short fiction. Fantastic, I love it. And then Adri Joe from Nerds of a Feather. Their reviews, I always trust those as well. So those are two that I'll be writing down. And then Fancast, I'll just throw this out here just because I think she's one of the hardest working people in BookTube. Rachel from The Shades of Orange. I think she is one of the best booktubers, and she covers horror, she covers science fiction, fantasy. And then with Fanzine, I'm going to go with Nerds of a Feather because they're amazing. And then SF in Translation. That's something I just recently been looking at from Rachel Cordasco.
I nominate SF in Translation every year.
Yeah. So that's something that I definitely need
Also,
to.
if any of you have links to these, please provide.
Well, I think a lot of them are also in the spreadsheet.
In fact, I'm not entirely sure if Rachel Cordasco is maybe also eligible for fan writer. I'm not exactly sure about her status. I think she may have professionally published some stuff that might disqualify her from fan, but I'm not 100% on that.
I feel like fan writer is such a nebulous category in terms of like what qualifies.
So the people that write on like Tor.com, they would not be a fan writer, correct? Or would they?
I think they do count because I know Alex Brown is eligible and they do a lot on Tor.com as well as their own blog.
Because I think Molly Templeton's series on Tor is amazing. The Mark as Read. And I think it's fantastic.
I mean, in terms of Fancast, one person that I'm definitely going to be nominating is G from Book Roast. Because like she has been like, first of all, the whole like shift from Magical Readathon being HP team to like Aurelium, like that whole thing, like she's just like such a hard worker, and she's
I also
just
have
like
a lot of respect for her for doing the transition and like basically being willing to pause and rebrand the thing that she's most like one of the things that she's most well known for.
Yes. And also, like, for example, if you look at anything, like all the materials, like she has, like, for example, non-binary representation in the materials, like if you read like the background stories and stuff like that. So like she's like fully like, and also like how she just does everything is like all about like accessibility and stuff like that. So and also like because she's fully like not necessarily a person who is a very fast reader, has a lot of like volume in terms of like how much she reads. So it's like she's very relatable to a lot of people in that sense as well. So I'm definitely going to be nominating her in the best fancast category.
Yeah, I think for me, some people I'm planning on nominating: Stitch for best fan writer. They're just someone whose commentary I really admire and think that they do a lot of really great work. Alex Brown. I would say for Fancast, Jan Miles Explain the X-Men. I'm always going to be nominating that. I would also say for Fancast, My Name is Marines. She hasn't been quite as active on BookTube, but she's been doing a lot on TikTok, and she has a lot of really great commentary, particularly around race and representation. I would also. Oh,
no, I was just thinking that I wonder if like is TikTok eligible in the fancast category, because like now it goes to show like what is counted as an episode, like is there length,
wondering about this.
Because this throws another wrench in the whole thing.
And like last year last year was the year I really like dipped my toes into TikTok, and I've sort of, I won't say I've given up on TikTok, but I'm sort of on a TikTok hiatus right now. We think, yes, TikTok is eligible, but
Okay.
but here's
Possibly
the thing,
with
like,
the
I'm
same
on
things.
BookTube and I'm on TikTok. So as someone who's on both platforms, can they be eligible as one fan cast, or are those two different fan casts?
I don't know.
I'm not sure I made enough content on either.
I should imagine that if it's under the same branding, then it's counted as one.
Interesting.
Like that's just like how my common sense would be. Like if you do something as Fancy Hat Lady reads on TikTok, and you also have a Fancy Hat Lady BookTube
Right.
channel, and those are kind of like same brand but different avenues of content, then it's kind of like
Right. But
under
I'm like,
the
I'm
same
not
thing.
posting my TikTok videos as YouTube shorts, right?
Yeah, but
I could be doing that, and I'm not. And I think there are definitely lots of, like, I'm not just talking about myself. Definitely lots of booktubers branching out into TikTok. And probably vice versa.
yeah, and also like I've recently started like coming across a lot of like Instagram reels as well. So people who are like, they're cross posting essentially between TikTok and Instagram. So
We have spent quite a while on the fan categories, which I was not quite counting on.
But we got all of them
Yeah.
in one go. So
we have not really talked about fan artist, where I never know what to nominate.
That one I have no idea.
I have unfortunately I have no idea like who is eligible in the fan artist category.
This is the one where I looked at my notes and was like, oh no, I have no idea who's eligible unless they post an eligibility post somewhere that I see it.
Well, and I feel like this is one where it's not just us who have problems, like other people do. And it was like part of the whole brouhaha at the business meeting last year with a couple of not very well thought out amendments about how do we define the fan artist category.
I mean, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 entries in the fan artist category on the spreadsheet currently.
One of them is Leia Rose, who I do nominate every year.
So that is my understand. Like I fully admit that this is my blind spot, which is unfortunate blind spot to have, because artists are like, you know,
it seems to me like there are probably a whole ton of people doing art that could be eligible who just have no idea, and so they're not plugging themselves as eligible.
Like for example, like I'm always like what counts? For example, like I would always like for example, the artist who does the web comics, they Stay Still, Stay Silent, which is one of my favorite things. But it's weird because she self-publishes it, but it's also her main job because she, like, you know, it's her web comic. She like does the thing. So like but also like, do you need to be published in like for example something like tor.com or like a fanzine or something? Like the criteria is very nebulous and stretchy, which is always why I have such a hard time like nominating for this category, because otherwise I would be like, well, you know, anyone who self-publishes and does like kind of like commentary art or like fan art in the genre would be eligible in my mind. But then it's like, yeah,
we have a question that I do not know how to answer. This is I have never understood the rules for who's eligible in fan artist, which is why I rely entirely on eligibility posts.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to like a percentage of their income or something, which you would never be able to find that out on your own.
nominating can possibly know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we know?
And also, I don't think that we are also entitled to know, entitled to someone to put that information out there.
It's
Yeah.
very weird.
But this is also what stumbles in the fan cast category, whether we're talking about a professional doing a fan podcast versus a layperson doing a fan. Like it's the same thing. Like, where do you draw the line? It's the same sort of gray area. It's this is as of right now, unfortunately, an empty category for me.
I know this is my fault for bringing up fan arts, but can I drag us away from the fan categories to move on to semi-prosine if we want to talk about semi-prosine at all?
Yes.
I did not have a banner ready for this. Semi-prosine. I want to scroll.
I have almost an entire bracket of like I have four things.
Okay, if you're very excited, you may start. Go.
So first of all, for the best semi-prosine, I have Future Science Fiction Digest, which is they basically do. You can read all of their catalog and stories for free on their website, but you can also purchase e-copies. And they do like translated fiction. I recently read the issue 15, which featured stories from Ukrainian, Chinese, and Greek authors. They've published stories from Brazilian and Chilean authors and stuff like that. So they're very like, and it's pretty much exclusively geared towards science fiction specifically, as their name implies as well. So it doesn't have like fantasy or like it doesn't have fantasy stories in it as much. Sometimes they have like science fiction horror, but a lot of the time is like geared towards like more like hard sci-fi. So that's one. And then another one is Anathema Spec from the Margins. That's one that I am going to be nominating. Also very good. They also have a very clear mission statement that you can check from their name. Spec from the Margins is that they basically want to include as many like diverse groups and authors from marginalized identities as possible. They do stuff like comics and poetry and nonfiction as well as fiction in the magazine. And then obviously second year in a row, I'm going to be nominating Choreo magazine. Similar thing, authors from diaspora, diasporic identities, and from all across the globe, like writing stories, writing essays. Choreo also does audio versions of majority of their stories. So you can read the stories on their website, and then they also have like audio narrations as well, which is really good. So they're all about accessibility as well. And then finally, I have Faya, literary magazine of Black speculative fiction, that I'm going to be nominating as well, because I always do, because they do great work. And I can't get to all of their stuff in a given year, but I'm always like trying to read at least a few of their like issues each year.
I would say the only ones I would add to that are Escape Pod and Strange Horizons.
Anyone else want to add?
I like Pseudopod as well. I just like the horror content. And then even though they recused themselves, I do like Beneath Cecil Skies. That's just a shout out to Beneath Cecil Skies. I think they're amazing.
They recused themselves?
Yeah, they recused themselves this year. Like the authors and I think the editors are still eligible, but as like the umbrella magazine, they've recused themselves from semi-prosine.
And obviously each of these like semi-prosines that are eligible as prosine, the stories within those issues that they've published are eligible. So if you are looking for finding something to read in terms of like for the novelette and short story and novella categories, like these are also like good to check out in terms of that as well, to like have some variety in your reading pool for short fiction.
Anyone else want to add to our semi-prosine list?
Did I might have missed it. Did Rhea mention Apex magazine?
Oh no, I didn't. But that is mostly because I I haven't been able to like read a lot of the stuff from last year, so
Is Apex still semi-prosine or pro?
not sure actually.
I
Maybe
just
I'm
listened
getting
to
it confused with Clark's World. Sorry.
They did just like I think they still like I think Apex still counts as a semi-prosine, maybe. I probably
I mean,
need to check
it
their
means that
website.
you don't pay, right? Because I listen to their podcast. They have their stories on their podcast for free. Oh yeah, Angela. Eita is another option, which I think that's Brazilian, and it's translated.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops! How did I thought I was trying to show. Oh, there it is. Never mind. I tried to show that comment and I failed, and now it's working.
Yeah, I'm not actually like sure if like I do think that semi-prosines are allowed to like make money though, right?
Oh, they are. Yeah.
Because I do know that not all of the semi-prosines like have all of their content out indefinitely.
Yeah, and like Faya, you do buy their.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if whether their content is available eventually is part of the definition or not. I think once again it might be their business model.
Yeah.
I think it is the business model side.
Yeah.
And are we all right to move on to pro artist?
Yes.
Yes.
I have some for
You
this
have some.
category. I have
some
some.
too.
I have notes somewhere. I couldn't find them before.
Is this one where we want to go through everyone, or do only some people want to chime in?
I can go really quickly. I finally found my
So
notes.
I do want to like clarify like the eligibility, like how much stuff do they had to have published?
I think it's 3 pro pieces.
3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah, because like I have artists that I want to mention, but they may or may not be eligible because of the lack of volume
Again,
in
it's
their.
very hard to know. Like, I always nominate people based on like what my favorite pieces of art have been in the year, but if they don't post an eligibility post, like you're just hoping that
So
they might be eligible.
So Rachel can go first.
Yeah, really quickly. And like I said, I'm not entirely sure if either of these people are eligible, but they're favorite artists of mine from this past year, so I'm going for it. One is Feifei Ruan, who did the covers of The Way Spring Arrives and A Prayer for the Crown Shy. And I do believe she is a professional artist. I don't know if all of her work falls within SFF, but she does make a living with art. And the other one is Sass Millage, who is the author and illustrator of Mamo, which is it's going to come up again for me in a graphic story. So
I will second Rachel's pick for the Way Spring Arrives artist that was also on my list.
Feifei Ruan. Yeah.
Yes.
I've got both of those books right here. There's the cover art for The Way Spring Arrives, and where did I put my novella stack?
I got it.
I think she also did
There it is.
cover for the new Melinda Lowe that came out last year, Scattering of Light.
Yes, you're right.
Oh yeah.
Is that one SFF though?
It's not SFF, but it is a paid piece.
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter for eligibility?
Well,
Don't know.
I don't know. The other one that I plan on nominating is Curry Huang. She did the cover for Daughter of the Moon Goddess, Sea Sparrow, The Girl Who
This is the year of Curry Huang.
Yeah, Strike is it. Like, we've had some absolutely amazing covers this
That
year.
Strike the Zither cover is like calling my name.
And this is not all of them. There were more. These are
Yeah.
just the ones
Okay,
I
so-
could reach from where
so-
I'm sitting.
What was their
So,
name
wait,
again?
What? Yeah,
Curry
exactly.
Huang. She's in the spreadsheet.
She's in the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Pro. Yes.
Corey Huang.
Yes.
Oh, Paul Lewin. How could I forget Paul Lewin?
Oh yeah.
that's what I was
that's
going to mention.
true.
I don't know if he's
Oh my
eligible, but I love his work.
He's
He does like Uncanny's covers like most of the time.
Yeah, and a bunch of his covers, a bunch of his art has been used as cover art for like reissues of Octavia Butler's stuff in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I mean, he is a professional artist, and almost I think all of his work is Afrofuturist SF
Yep.
fic related. So yeah,
He just recently painted a whole ass mural in San Fran, like in
Yeah.
California somewhere.
yeah. I'm not gonna lie. Someday I want to get one of his painted boxes.
Yeah.
I'm like I should just save up and.
So I have a few like artists that I want to mention. Not necessarily that they're eligible this year, but maybe for future years, maybe like we can like keep an eye on them. So Christina Mrozik did the cover for What Moves the Dead by P. Kingfisher. And then Martina Fachkova did a cover for A Taste of Gold and Iron. And then Manzi Jackson did the cover for Africa Risen, which is this one. So those are like the three artists that I want to mention. I'm not like they've all had professional work that was paid for and published last year, but I am not sure if they have had enough work that makes them eligible in this category. But good to know the people so that to put them on people's radar.
One more artist I was trying to figure out if they were eligible last night is this cover artist, Carolina Rodriguez Fuenmayor, who did this beautiful cover for Lake Lore. I know that she also did a cover for a YA book last year that I don't really know anything about, even though it was a Goodreads Choice nominee, called If You Could See the Sun by Anne Leong, which I believe is speculative. And I don't know how I failed to know that book existed, but it's another beautiful cover. So I don't know if she has enough eligible art this year, but that's another artist. You know, this is another one of my favorite book covers of the year.
It's such a beautiful cover.
It is beautiful, and it's so beautiful for the story. Like,
yeah, it's one of the covers. Like, as an individual piece of art, it's really beautiful, but as something that reflects the story, works perfectly.
Like, after you've read the book, it makes more sense. Yes. I think we've gotten to everyone on my list. Does anyone else have artists to shout out?
I put some in the chat,
yeah,
but I'm not sure if they're
me
eligible or
say
not.
Just to make sure it gets on the screen. Then next on the list is going to be one of those categories. Oh, yes, I want to show this, the artist for Magic Steeped in Poison and Sequel. Those are beautiful covers for books on my TBR. And that artist is Sija Hong. I don't know how to pronounce that, but and then the artist for A Strange and Stubborn Endurance, Michaela Alciano.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about editors, short form and long form at all?
I mean, I have a couple.
Okay.
Like I
I'm
will.
looking at the time and being like, we're taking so much time, but yes, editor, go.
Well, I'm just gonna quickly say that I'm going to be nominating Regina Kun, Yu Wang, and Yu Chen for their work on The Way Spring Arrives.
Yeah.
Not sure if I'm going to be nominating either one of them or both of them separately. And then also Jonathan Strawn had Tomorrow's Parties come out last year, so he's also eligible. And then Sheree, Renee Thomas, and Zelda Knight are eligible for Africa Risen, as well as Ogenechuet Donald Ekpeki. So one of those three might be on my ballot.
I am always muddled in my understanding of whether editors of anthologies are eligible in short form or long form. Which is it?
Short form.
Short form.
Short form?
Yeah.
Long form
Like
would be
long form editors are eligible in like if they've edited novels.
Okay.
Which
I
I
feel
could
like I was told otherwise at some point in my life, and I got confused.
I feel like I might. I don't remember their name, but Nivo's editor. I might nominate them in the best editor long form category. I mean, wait, where is it? I can't just cheat and look it up.
So while you're
Ruoshi Chen.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So for short form, Arlie Sorg and Christy Yant for Fantasy Magazine. Arlie Sorg is everywhere right now. I always see him constantly doing nonfiction work, related work, and everywhere. Anyways, Cherie Renee Thomas, I think Fantasy and Science Fiction Magazine is amazing right now with her leadership. Scott H. Andrews, Beneath Cecil Skies, and then Wendy N. Wagner at Nightmare. I think they're doing great. Now, long form, I have no clue. It's so difficult to find that information. I gave up.
I will say, like, this is why I love these. This needs to be a new trend, which is great.
I like it. I end up taking like all of my favorite novels that I'm going to nominate for the best novel category. I go and like I flip through the copyright and the acknowledgement pages to find out if they mention the editor. That's what I do.
Yeah, pretty much the same.
I just hope that they edited more than one that year.
Ruoshi Chen is like really prolific though.
Yeah.
I'm making a banner for our next category, which is dramatic presentation.
I've been waiting for
Wait,
this.
do we have related work first?
Related work. I skipped related work.
So I think Magical Readathon or Relium is also eligible in their best related work category.
Yeah. I'm nominating that for best related work. I also plan on nominating, oh God, where is it? The Rise and Fall of Geek Culture. It's a video essay by Sarah Zed. She has a lot of video essays, but I think that one is the one I would like to nominate.
Bessie Gender has a couple of really long like video essays. Specifically, I think like I need to check which ones of the I need to check if the sex commentary on the sex and sexuality in Star Trek Next Generation was published last year, so that it's eligible because that was a damn good episode.
I forgot to put it in there, but and I can't remember if it came out like late 2022 or early 2023, but Princess Weeks did a really interesting video kind of breaking down the trope of Confederate vampires.
Yes. That was really good. Why are there so many Confederate vampires?
Yeah, that one I need to double check when it came out because I can't remember, like I said, if it was early 2023 or late 2022.
I think it was early 2023 though, because I think it's like but
But yeah,
It
she
could be
has some
next
stuff
year's ballot.
Yeah, she also has some stuff from 2022. So I do plan on nominating at least one thing from her for best related work. Because yeah, like Ramsey said, she's just been crushing it. She's just had a lot of really great video essays coming out.
Yeah, I mean, I've like been waiting for her stuff. Like, I have all the notifications. But yeah, in terms of like nonfiction, like actual like nonfiction books and stuff relating to SFF, I actually haven't gotten any, because like I feel like all the related work I consume nowadays is either video essays or some form of like events or like other nebulous categories that can't really be put under anything else.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just checked, and the Confederate Vampire video came out December 28th.
Oh!
So it like just made the cutoff.
Okay, I'm just gonna put that on my list.
I always nominate LeVar Burton Reads in this category because I love that podcast so much, and it's not technically a fan cast.
That's a very like another one of those like gray areas, because like yeah.
So last year,
I personally probably would also put it in like best related work, but you know, there's like your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
last year Sean Tan put out an art book, and it's called Creatures, Drawings and Reflections, and it was phenomenal. It was very good. Sean Tan is the person that did Arrival, and which was really good.
Does that mean he's eligible in professional artist as well, or
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Very interesting. I did not know he had any book.
And then Nightmare always has this long-running series called H Word, and Alex Woodrow did a great one. It was called Search for Romanian Horror, and I just talked about Romania and the horror culture over there in the community, and I thought that was really good. It was in May of Nightmare.
Liren's Bookies Adventures is saying, I'm thinking of nominating the fantasy heroine stuff by Jill Bearup. I'd say those clips are meta enough for related work. Yes, because they're commentating on like existing tropes and like specifically like tropes and cliches in the genre itself, and they're not necessarily commenting on like they're not book reviews or like movie reviews. They're commenting on the tropes themselves and the genre conventions themselves. So could be. I've also been quite enjoying that series.
I'm wondering, like, just stretching the boundaries of what this category could include. Could it be like video games or like Dungeons and Dragons manuals? Or
So I feel like that is going to be probably, I think right now potentially, but there's the best game or I can't even remember the proper term, but it's the games category that ERA was passed for the first.
What is this?
The Adventurer's Bible for Delicious in Dungeon is technically eligible in the best related category. So
yeah, but yeah, I think the second vote should be happening at Chengdu, so they'll be in official games category, starting in Glasgow.
But for this year, when there is not an official game,
I think for this year it'd be related works.
Yeah,
games can be nominated in related work.
I think so, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm thinking about nominating Fit to Be Red's video where they did like the 210 top sci-fi of the. It's like he just does his top 100 or 210, but he had like a lot of guest visits from like authors and other booktubers, and it was like this huge labor of love, basically. So it seems like the best category to put it in.
I needed to pick it up. I had completely forgotten about the Adventurer's Bible, the Delicious in Dungeon World Guide, which basically goes to all of the world building details of Delicious in Dungeon, the manga series, which a few volumes are eligible this year. And it's like full color illustrations of all the monsters, all the biology, all the like stuff. Goes into all the various cultures. So yeah, this is a very good companion to the series.
Yeah, Adri wrote it. So a permanent best game or interactive experience award is up for the second year notification. This year in 2021, it was the special award. So kind of like I think it was Dublin did best art book. Well, someone did best art book, and I think it was Le Guin's the Illustrated Earthsea that won that year.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, so this would make
Those
it
didn't get ratified.
No, so that was so every Worldcon can have a special category, so they can choose what they want it to be. And so this con essentially trialed the best games or interactive experience award as their special category. And then ERA, like the reason I went to all those business meetings last year and created a drinking game for it was ERA was proposing for it to be a permanent category. So it has to be voted on 2 years in a row. So last year was that first year. And then at Chengdu's business meeting, it will have the second ratification.
Yeah, so if Chengdu ratifies it, then basically in Glasgow, it will be a permanent category.
Yes.
So
Good clarification.
play all of the games this year, actually. This year. Because if Chengdu ratifies it, then this year's games will be eligible next year in Glasgow. Chengdu, do the right thing. Do the right thing.
I know, right? Well, my
Okay.
husband is going to hopefully publish his like D&D basically game this year, so hopefully it'll be like eligible next year.
It
But
should. So the way that it's written is it's not just limited to video games. That's why it's game or interactive work.
Yeah, should be board games as well.
Yeah, he's doing a South American TTRPG, so
Nice.
with tons of gorgeous art. So I'm super excited.
Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
I'm getting tired.
I'm not, because I restarted 1 hour early in my
Right. All of us had a time zone shift except for Rhea.
I'm the winner in this scenario.
Rhea is the winner. We are all the losers. The dramatic presentation, short form, the category in which I have absolutely nothing and I need recommendations,
I have one.
is just like
I have a few.
So go, Rhea.
Rhea, you go ahead. I need to look up my title.
I have 2 episodes from Andor. Andor episode 10, One Way Out, is what I'm going to be nominating, and also Andor episode 12, Rick's Road. I'm going to be nominating those 2 at least, because Andor was freaking amazing.
It was so
like,
good.
Single-handedly restored my faith in Star Wars. And also, I'm personally going to be nominating Chainsaw Man episode 9 from Kyoto, because Chainsaw Man also in its entirety is eligible. So Chainsaw Man.
Yeah, I plan on nominating the Andor ones. I also want to nominate the Elysian Kingdom from Star Trek Strange New Worlds. That was probably like, I love Strange New Worlds overall, but that one was my favorite. It was like almost a holodeck episode, but without the holodeck. And it turned into a really lovely story about parenthood and letting go. So yeah, and that it had some like great acting moments from the cast kind of playing against type for some of them.
I don't remember if I've seen that one yet.
Strange New Worlds is really fun. I really loved it.
It's the one with it's like the captain before Captain Kirk.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember that episode specifically.
It was the one where they they become characters in this children's story.
Okay. Yeah, I remember now. I liked that. I think it was it the last episode? The one that was basically Omalas? It was interesting too.
Yeah. Yeah, that one, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, they're doing the ones who walk away from Omalas.
Yeah. So I have one episode that I feel strongly about for this category. Like I'm still figuring out exactly what I'm going to do because I like a lot of those shows too. But I really liked from the Orville season, was it 3? Whichever one came out last year, but it's called Midnight Blue. And I really like what it did because it kind of explored some like political, ethical stuff. And I was really afraid that they were going to do kind of like a lazy thing. And they ended up not. And I was really impressed with that. So that's like my number one choice in this category. And I'll probably also like throw in a Boys episode. I really like The Boys season 3, but I haven't picked out a particular one yet.
Paul, do you have anything for dramatic presentation short form?
I do not.
Rachel?
Nope.
Neither do I. Are we good to move on to long form?
Yep.
I also have stuff for long form.
Okay,
Yeah,
go
me too.
ahead.
So first of all, I am going to be nominating the entire Chainsaw Man, obviously. All 12 episodes, just for context, because it is eligible. Just like it has been one of the best anime watching experiences, like in a long while. So, and also like I think having read the manga as well, it actually improves on key points of the manga while respecting, like it's a very good adaptation where it knows where it can stretch the boundaries because it's in an animated form, and also knows when to pull back certain aspects that work better in the manga. So I feel like in an adaptational sense it is very good. So and also just like a masterpiece in animation, like it's just so damn good. And so I'm gonna nominate that. And also then there's Tomorrow, which Rachel and I have been watching. And so it is the 16 episode K-drama all about a person who falls into a coma and starts working part-time in the underworld in a certain department of death that they are essentially saving people from suicide.
Thank you for reminding me of that one because yes, and
that is eligible in its entirety. In its entirety, so I'm gonna nominate that one. Tomorrow, it's on Netflix.
Okay,
it's very good. If you like this like the whole, first of all, it's very like death in like bureaucracy, like the whole like hell / underworld is essentially like a tiered bureaucracy of various departments that are in competition with each other, and they have like these productivity clauses, and the main character gets basically into this department that is under threat of closing because they haven't really like met up their quotas and productivity quotas. So it's like commentary also on like these capitalistic like corporate things where even death has become commodified and corporatized. It's great. Also, there's Bubble, which is an anime movie. It's
I watched like the first half of that and then forgot I was watching it.
Yeah.
Was the rest of it good?
Yes, it's quite good. But also, what Thomas is saying, Everything Everywhere All at Once is eligible.
That's on the top of my list.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen it. Gosh darn it.
And also Black Panther, Wakanda Forever is probably gonna make the list.
Yeah.
I'm basically probably going to nominate it just because I love Namor, and Namor was hot in that movie. I'm shallow.
Yeah, the one I haven't seen that I would like to nominate is Prey. So that's the new Predator movie. Like I've heard very good things about it, so I do plan on watching it before nominating, but I think that could be good. And then I honestly might just nominate all of Andor season 1 because I think as a whole it's probably some of the best Star Wars that's ever come out.
Yeah. Andor was great.
So good.
My library just got multiple copies of Everything Everywhere.
I mean, Michelle
Guess where
Yeoh
I'm
has
going when
been
we're done.
Michelle Yeoh has been winning a lot.
Yeah.
Like Golden Globes. Like, aren't the Oscars
The
tonight?
Oscars are tonight.
Yeah,
Also,
and
wow.
she's
anyone
also
watching, because I'm
nominated
not
for
watching,
Oscars.
but
I am following along on Twitter because I don't have cable or broadcast television and I don't feel like trying to figure out a stream.
Like it will be like the Finnish national broadcasting system channel will be broadcasting it live, but I need to sleep. I have work tomorrow. Is Prey eligible this year?
Yeah.
Oh,
It came out in March, I think.
well, I might also maybe nominate Prey for the hot Predator. I have valid reasons.
yes, absolutely valid reasons. I'm losing track of who's gotten a chance to share for long
still
form. If who hasn't, Paul, if you have something to talk about, I want to make sure you have a chance.
Nothing else. I probably will do Everything Everywhere all at once as well because that movie is bonkers.
I will
And-
be
Great.
shocked if that's not on the short list.
And Rachel, did you talk? You did or didn't?
I chimed in on all the stuff that Rhea reminded me of.
Okay. This has been a year where I've watched actually a decent amount of eligible stuff, but not really liked some of it enough to nominate. But Everything Everywhere All at Once will be on my list. The C-drama Love Between Fairy and Devil is going to be on my list just for like pure fluff enjoyment. Would recommend that if you like sort of, I don't know, Hades and Persephone romance vibes, but in a Xianxia setting. Stop motion Pinocchio might be on my list. I saw a number of other animated films last year that I don't know if I like enough to nominate. There was Turning Red from Pixar and Strange World from Disney Animation. I saw a couple of anime movies also in theaters that I also don't know if I liked quite enough to nominate. Inu-Oh was one of them, and The Deer King was the other. I started watching the K-drama Alchemy of Souls, which is a big sweeping fantasy show, and then dropped it partway through for no reason whatsoever, except I sort of forgot I was watching it. But it had 2 seasons that were out, both released last year. So there are 2 separate seasons that are probably each eligible individually, plus maybe the whole thing on its own. I'm not really sure about what happens when there are 2 seasons of a show out in 1 year.
Yeah, I forgot about the Sea Beast. That's also eligible.
I saw on the spreadsheet someone had put in Belle, which is one of the anime films we talked about last year being eligible, and I was like immediately like, no, wrong year. That was last year. But then I realized that I saw that at a film festival screening in the US, but it didn't actually have an American theatrical release until January of 22. Does that mean it's eligible again, or did it have its international release in?
I don't know.
Well, it did
21?
have an international release in 21.
What countries does it have to be released in 21?
I mean, UK had it in 21,
UK had it in
so
21.
that's
Yeah,
an English market.
Yeah,
Not
so I think
eligible?
I think that would make it ineligible for this year.
That is too bad, because no one in America except like me at a New York Film Festival got to see that the year it was actually eligible. So
Oh no, Has. One Piece Red. No, people would have no idea what they were watching unless they had seen like the 400, 500 episodes of One Piece.
that
So I'm planning to nominate Nope by Jordan Peele. That was a horror movie that came out last year. It's like very artsy horror though. I thought it was really good. And then The Boys season 3, I mean, I just really enjoyed it, but I also think it was well done. Talked about interesting political things, very prescient. And then probably Everything Everywhere All at Once for me also. Although for me, I feel like I liked it, I appreciated it, but I didn't love it as much as everybody else did. I think mostly just because I'm not an action movie person. So like I would watch the first couple of minutes. I'm like, this is really good action. This is really well choreographed. It's really funny. It's really great. But now I'm bored and I want it to be done. So
I loved every single frame of that movie. But I understand that it's definitely not for everyone, because it's very also out there in terms of like it's a movie that kind of does well with repeated viewings,
yeah,
because like
I'd like to see it again.
it has so many stuff. It's kind of like slap all the things in the wall kind of thing, and
Yeah.
then once you go back and watch it again, you kind of can start to like take things apart a little bit more and focus on some things. But the first viewing experience can be really intense. And I know that like for example, one of my friends like completely disassociated from the entire thing because it was so too much for her.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I think I loved how weird and wacko it was. I loved the message of it. I loved everything it was doing. I think I just needed the action scenes to be shorter, and then I would have loved it, because I did start to feel like, oh my gosh, this movie's so long.
Ramsey's comment about wanting Everything Everywhere All at Once to win an Oscars just for the butt plug fight scene alone is yes.
That people keep mentioning that, and now I'm nervous to watch it.
Hey, I don't think it's as disturbing as the Sausage Fingers universe.
the Sausage Fingers universe is the most disturbing.
Yeah,
Hot dog fingers.
Hot Dog Fingers universe.
It's arguably the best though.
The best universes were the Rakakuni universe and the We Are Rocks universe.
Yes, the Rakakuni was
Rakakuni is very fun.
very nice. Okay, Rachel, you will just have to watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want company to watch it, I will do the ultimate sacrifice and watch it again.
I'll let you know when my library hold comes in.
Are we ready to move on to whatever is next, which is best graphic story or comic, where I also
Yay!
Yay!
We have opinions beginning now.
things
Opinions.
Opinions.
2 hours.
Okay. If we all have opinions, we're gonna do the rotation
I
again.
don't have opinions, so
We'll
skip
skip
me. I've been very bad about reading graphic novels.
Skip
this year.
you, but Paul, do you have recommendations?
So I'm going to recommend The Night Eaters, Volume 1 from Marjorie Liu and Sonia Takada. And the volume's called She Eats the Night. It's a horror graphic novel, and it's the people that's been winning the graphic novel for a while, but it's different. It's a horror, and it's fantastic, and a lot of backstory. You really don't know what's going on until like close to the end. It's pretty good.
Rachel?
Okay, my list. I think there are 2 volumes of Witch Hat Atelier which are eligible. Volume 9 was my favorite out of the 2, so volumes 9 and volumes 10.
Yes.
So I definitely have to nominate Witch Hat Atelier.
Yes.
I love John Allison's work, and his current comic is Steeple, and volume 3 came out at the end of 2022. It is supernatural. Yeah, and yeah, I love it. Monstrous Volume 7 by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. That series continues to be really good. I know that they're kind of darlings in this category, but I keep nominating the series. I mentioned Mamo before, which is written and illustrated by Sass Millage. This is a standalone graphic novel. It's kind of YA coming of age about young witches, and it is gorgeous and just very heartwarming and wonderful. And Across a Field of Starlight by Blue Delaquanti is also on my list. I thought this one was beautifully illustrated, very vibrant and colorful, and it has a good story as well. Lots of diversity and representation in it, which is really fantastic. And then there are 2 that I haven't read yet, but I'm going to try to cram in for consideration for this category. Saga Volume 10, I believe, is eligible. I haven't read it yet, but I feel like I should read it just in case it like blitzes this category, because Saga is back.
I probably will. My unpopular opinion, no, I do not like Saga.
I thought it was over.
No,
I
it's
wish.
been on hiatus for 2 or 3 years. They say they're at the halfway point, and volume 10 is picking back up again. Anyway, yes, I'm a Saga fan, but I won't say any more than that. And also, I've heard really good things about M is for Monster, and I did not write down the author's name. I'm sorry. I know Shannon from That So Po has highly recommended this one, so I wanted to try to get that in. I believe it's like sci-fi horror. And that's it from my list.
Kristen?
Okay. The only thing on my list is oh man, now I'm totally blanking on what it's called. The Persephone and Hades one that got nominated, Lore Olympus.
Lore Olympus,
yeah.
I've been
volume 2 is out now.
I think there's more than one volume that came out this year. I think there's like
volumes 2 and
Volume
3
2
are both eligible because they were
Oh.
both published in 2022. Yeah.
Oh, I thought only volume 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Volume 3 came out in October, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not a huge graphic novel reader, but I really like this one. And I was kind of like last year when it was on the short list, I was a little bit skeptical. I'm like, oh, well, it's just because it's like, I don't know, it's reaching a different audience who decided that was their one thing they were going to nominate. But like now that I've been reading it, and it's like really long at this point, it's actually really good. The artwork is beautiful. It's extremely entertaining, very engaging, but it's also like dealing with like themes of trauma and like overcoming things. And it's not like complete popcorn either. So I think it's actually a very worthy, eligible work. So even though this is not like a category I'd normally even nominate in, I'm going to go ahead and put that one on my ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Rhea?
Yeah, so as Rachel said, Witch Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama volumes 9 and 10 are eligible, and I am probably going to be nominating volume 9 because it just deals with it has like it has some like kind of stand-alone-ish chapters. It feels a little bit like kind of like follows shorter stories in a sense that are fleshing out some side characters. That is very interesting. Although I also did enjoy volume 10, but I'm probably going to be nominating volume 9. Also, Delicious in Dungeon by Ryoka Kui. Also, volumes 10 and 11 are eligible from Yen Press. I'm probably going to be nominating volume 11. Shit is hitting the fanet so to speak. Like things are really like hyping up. The series is most likely nearing its conclusion in the next like I would assume in the next 10 volumes we will have reached the conclusion unless something major happens. And then Chainsaw Man by Tatsuki Fujimoto, volumes 9 to 12 are eligible in this category. So I am possibly going to be nominating one of those. It
You will
is
be
going.
very happy if this is like the Hugo year for Chainsaw Man.
If Chainsaw Man comes and wipes all the categories,
I
will
hope
be
it
very
makes at least
happy.
one category for you.
I hope so. I hope so. I'm putting my eggs in the Chainsaw Man basket. I'm just like I have been like I get so allergic to hype sometimes that I kind of like start like preemptively detesting something when it's very popular. It's a character flaw of mine. But Chainsaw Man has actually like managed to live up to most of the hype. Not all of the hype, but most of the hype. Like I've been really enjoying it. Not still don't understand why it's in a young adult magazine, but anyway. And then I have Cotton Tales Volume 1 by Loputin, also known as Jessica Cioffi. This is from Shockdom, and the first volume was published in English last year, and it's essentially horror, sort of kind of like Alice in Wonderland inspired. It takes place in this house, and there are these mysterious creatures that are very cute and also incredibly deadly.
Would it be too scary for me?
I will show you a picture of the deadly creatures.
Oh.
That's so cute.
So take with make of that what you will. But yes, this is eligible. And then I also probably will nominate Bolero by Wyatt Kennedy and Luana Vecchio. This is also a sort of like multiverse story dealing with basically a character who is escaping her situation. Like she's someone who struggles with abandonment issues and like also commitment due to abandonment issues and alcoholism. And it is essentially her escaping all of her problems through the multiverse. Like every time something is starting to go wrong, instead of facing her problems, she kind of like skips into another multiverse, and then like that character arc of like how to go about solving that. I thought that this wasn't perfect, but I thought that this did interesting things, and the art is really good.
And Di, did you say to skip you for this category, or did
Yeah, like I said, I haven't been reading graphic novels or manga, so I'm just going off of what people recommend and what's in the spreadsheet.
I might pick up some of these to read, but I have not read anything for this category this year. I want to highlight some of the comments recommending some other things. We have a recommendation for Made in Korea by Jeremy Holt and George Shaw, which I have not heard of at all. And another one I have not heard of is Step by Bloody Step, Zero Dialogue standalone graphic novel, which sounds incredible. I love standalones. I'm big on standalones. And then another recommendation for one I have heard of this one, Squire, which is a YA graphic novel. That's one that I might try to get from the library. And then we've already been going for 2 hours. Are we okay to keep going for another hour?
I'm fine with going. I figured this was going to be a longer one.
Yeah,
so-
same.
I was sort of planning on like 3 hours, but I know we didn't really discuss it.
I've got maybe
I'm
like 45 minutes left, and then I need to jet. So
45 minutes. We'll try to get it done.
yes.
Because we have Best Series is next, right? I'm not getting things out
Yes.
of order again. series is next, and I've definitely got both opinions and questions about eligibility in this category. Is this another one where everyone's going to want to comment? So we're going to go in order.
I don't have anything. You can skip me for this.
I only have one thing.
I have several things.
Several things. We're going to start with Paul.
So, Dandelion Dynasty, I believe one of them came out last year. Ken Liu.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last year of eligibility, that was also my
That's on my list as well.
Yeah.
I haven't read this, so I'll be upfront about this, but Premi Muhammad's Beneath the Rising series. The Robert Jackson Bennett series, the Founders Trilogy. I think that Sarah, is it Kun or Kun? The
Sarah
heroine.
Kuhn.
Yeah, the heroine complex. I just think they just need more people talking about it.
That
And
was
then-
on my list as well.
Yeah, nice. And then depending on where it's odd because sometimes these publishers are putting out Kindle versions before they're putting out the hardback versions. But Children of Time trilogy by Adrian Tchaikovsky. The third book, the Kindle version came out last year, but then the physical book's coming out this. I don't know. That's very confusing.
Weird.
That is
That
why.
makes eligibility confusing.
Or is the paperback or something out in the UK already, and it's just coming out in the US now? Because it could also be that, because I have this weird feeling where I have seen the third one, Adri is saying physical book is out in the UK. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes it a little clearer in terms of eligibility. Paul, did you have any others, or was that okay? Rachel, you said to skip. You know, or who was I've forgotten who was being skipped and who was
You
not
can
being.
skip
I think
me.
it's my turn.
Yeah.
Okay, Tristan.
I'm also planning to nominate Dandelion Dynasty. I've only actually read the first one, but it was really good. I plan to get to the rest of the series, and I think Ken Liu deserves the win or the attention. Also, Locked Tomb by Tamsin Muir is finally eligible this year. And that's like been one of my favorite series for the last, since it's been out. So definitely nominating that one, but it will be eligible next year. Also, I believe the final book is going to come out next year. So it's not her last chance like it is for Ken Liu. And then I had been thinking that I would nominate The Scholomance by Naomi Novik. This is the correct category, right, Di?
Yeah, this is the correct category.
Yeah.
However, I did not unequivocally love the last book that came out. I kind of had some issues with it. I thought it was not a good ending to the series. So now I'm not sure I'm going to nominate it. So I don't know. I'm still thinking about that one. And then I haven't read the Premi Muhammad series either, but I was curious about that one. I was hoping to get to it. It's not going to happen, but I'm kind of thinking about just putting her on there just to like get her name out there, because I feel like she's a really good writer and more people need to read. And then I am personally not a huge fan of the Singing Hill cycle, but I think that would be eligible.
I don't think it is. I don't think it has enough words.
Oh, is it based on words? Okay.
It's part of it is based on word count.
Minimum word count, and then at least 3 entries in a series.
Yes, I don't think it hits the minimum word count yet.
So, for example, Sean and McGuire's Wayward Children books weren't eligible for the series category until I think, was it the 4th or 5th?
I think it was last year was one of the first year they were eligible.
Because then it reached the word count.
Okay.
And was eligible.
Okay. Yeah, so the only two that I'm sure about are Locked Tomb and Dandelion Dynasty.
Rhea?
Dandelion Dynasty, that's the only one, because I have been very, very, very bad about reading series.
I'm also bad about reading series, but I also like.
Oh, I do. I have some.
Nominate books based on not being caught up on the series. Like if I've read one book in a series and I loved it, I will still nominate it, even if I haven't read the eligible work. Sorry for the confession. But Di, if you want to.
Yeah, so I had Dandelion Dynasty, Sarah Kuhn's Heroine Complex. I would say the Graceling Realms, because I think Sea Sparrow, well, it didn't hit me the same level that Winterkeep did. It was still, I think, a really good entry and did some really good contextualizing on past events that happen in this series.
Graceling Realms is eligible again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say the Chilling Effect series by Valerie Valdez. I still need to read the last one, but it is a really fun sci-fi romp. And I think that could be really fun for best series. I know she won last year for Wayward Children, but I'd probably nominate the October Day series by Shauna McGuire as well, just because I think, especially with the book that came out last year, Be the Serpent, it does a really good job of highlighting the long-term planning that McGuire's put into that series and like how it's accumulation of everything that's happened before. So I don't know if she would actually be on the ballot, because people might be like, you won best series, good job. But I do think that's probably one of my favorite ongoing series at this point.
Well, she's probably going to get nominated. So
I know, but she has it's both for the October Day books and the Encrypted books, and I'm so far behind on the Encrypted, and I also think that the October Day series is the better of the two.
okay.
Did I highlight this comment that's showing right now, or did someone else? Oh,
I think you did.
You're the only one with the
I
power
did
to
not
highlight.
mean to, and I'm happy to highlight comments, but it was just there for a while, and I didn't remember if I had highlighted it or not. I must have, I'm meaning to highlight recommendations from the comments, but I'm also
you are
slightly
new
losing
to
my
your
mind.
you are
What?
new to your hosting superpowers.
I'm new to my hosting superpowers, and I haven't totally gotten used to StreamYard yet.
Reed Becca is asking if the Expanse is eligible, and I don't know. Let me check.
I have a feeling no, because it would be eligible for the novella collection, but only one of the novellas was original. I mean, as in published.
Haven't they
they
won best series
recused.
before?
I think Expanse has won best series.
Yeah, I think once you win, you're removed
Once
from
you win, you're not eligible again.
Have they?
I don't know.
Did it win? Oh boy.
I don't know. I don't know. I know Bujold won it twice the first years it was out.
Yeah,
okay.
Liren's Bookish Adventures say Expanse has already won. It wasn't just our fever dream then. It has happened. But they have, to be fair, Expanse has also dominated the dramatic presentation category.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a lot of
really
Expanse.
good.
It was. I still need to finish the series.
Okay, so series that are no longer eligible: Vorkosigan, but that ended. World of the Five Gods, Wayfarers, The Expanse, Murderbot, and Wayward Children.
Also, Vorkosigan won once that one
year.
year.
Yeah, won the first year.
Yeah.
Bujold won the first 2 years.
Yep,
back to back.
Okay.
Yeah, first for Penric, I guess, or not
first
Penric.
for Vorkosigan, then for Penric.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, in series, I discovered my new favorite self-published fantasy series this year that did have a spin-off novel published. This is the Stariel series by A.J. Lancaster. So the first 4 books were already out. This is the spin-off novel that was published this year. So I believe this series is eligible. There's 5 books total now. It's Fae Fantasy of Manners romance, bit of, high stakes building as the series goes on. And then Graceling Realms, absolutely. Even if I don't get around to Sea Sparrow in time, I'll be nominating that based on strength of all the previous books. Another one in YA that's eligible is the Insipidity Script series by Nadia Borafor with the new book, A Colorless Woman.
Yeah.
That makes the series
Oh, yeah.
eligible.
Okay, I'm nominating that.
And in terms of questions I have about eligibility, is the Universe of Shuya re-eligible this year? Because I think it's been the requisite number of years since.
Yeah,
it was
I don't know
eligible.
if it's made word count, but let me double check.
Well,
probably because it was last nominated in 2019. So it's been it'll be like 3 or 4 years.
And there's been in the meantime, there's been Seven of Infinities and The Red Scholar's Wake and a bunch of short fiction, right?
Yeah, I think Suya might be eligible then.
Then I
It hasn't
have
won, right?
not yet picked up the new Queen's Thief story collection. I don't know if there's new material in that would make that series re-eligible.
I don't know if it would be enough new content to
How
make
much new content does it have to be?
I don't know.
I think at least a novel's length of words.
At least a novel's length of words. And I don't even know how long that collection is, because I don't think I've even seen a physical copy. So I have no idea how much new material, if any, is in that. But it hasn't been nominated before at all. So how much needs to be published in the year for something that hasn't been nominated before?
I don't know.
Audrey says
I
no.
don't know if that matters at that point. It just has to have something qualifying of any length, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, Adri's saying it could be a new short story as long as the series hasn't been nominated before. Okay, so I think it is that. I was getting it confused because it's if you've been nominated before there
how much
there
more
is a word count limit that you have to exceed to be eligible again. But you haven't been nominated.
Tragically sad that I had not yet started reading that series in the year the last novel was released, so I wasn't able to nominate it in series then because I hadn't read the books. If it is eligible again this year because of the story collection,
let me look it up.
It will absolutely be on my ballot. I am assuming there is at least some new material in that story collection. Again, I haven't picked it up yet and been able to look at a table of contents and publication dates for the individual stories.
It says the cover copy says never before published stories, vignettes, and excerpts, poetry, and rhymes.
Because if the Queen's Thief is eligible in series this year, I want to be shouting.
Oh, yeah. If it is eligible, then I'm 100% nominating it.
Okay. Another one, I'm not totally sure about eligibility in terms of word count. There was a novella published this year in the Tales of the Chance series by Alexandra Rowland. The first two were novels. Those were A Conspiracy of Truths and A Choir of Lies. I haven't yet read this one, Over All the Earth. I don't know if the composite word count of these three, I don't have a good working understanding of like how much book
I think the word count, I think someone said it in here, but it's 2,400,000 words.
That means nothing to me in terms of amount of book in my brain.
So Shannon Maguire was eligible after 6 Wayward Children novellas for the Wayward Children.
I haven't seen an eligibility post from Alexandra Rowland if the word count of this series is up to the series word count yet. But I'm hoping to get some clarification.
I'm also just like, because all of their work is interconnected. So is it like...
Oh gosh, I really don't enjoy it when like interconnected universes of multiple series are nominated in this category. And I know they're eligible. I know I shouldn't be griping about it. And there's all sorts of border cases. And it's not something where I'm like saying don't nominate big sprawling universes because I'm mad and I don't know where to start when they're on the ballot.
I mean, Audrey says the first two novels of that series are quite chunk, right? So I suspect it would make it.
Pardon?
Audrey's last comment: the first two novels of that series are quite chunk.
They,
so it's
they
like,
are
do
quite
we want?
chunk, but like I also have just a bad sense of how much, you know.
Okay,
books
Adri's
are
also
accessible.
saying that average novel length is about 100,000 words.
Okay.
So the two novels by themselves are already the 200,000 probably.
Right. I personally, just as a reader who reads things that are nominated for Hugos, would always prefer a sub-series to be nominated in series as opposed to a larger world. Also because
Same.
if a larger universe is nominated and then it wins and then the author writes another sub-series, could that sub-series be eligible again or not at all because the whole universe has won? Because like all of Alexandra Rowland's books are in the same universe. So if that overarching universe were to win a Hugo, would none of their books ever be eligible in series again?
I feel like maybe, because I think the World of the Five Gods is kind of that test case, because Penric and Desdemona, it's like part of the same universe as the Curse of Chalion, the Paladin of Souls, Hallowed Hunt, but they're set like
But then if Bujold were to start a new series that were not Penric or Desdemona or the Curse of Chalion series,
I think
a
it
whole
would
new
still,
series, would that series never be eligible because the World of the Five Gods has already won?
I think that would be the case.
See, that sort of breaks my heart a little and is part of why I hesitate to nominate whole universes from authors who are still writing new series.
I think that was actually part of the problem that we had last year with the Charles Stross Landry files, because I guess there's sub-series between all of them, and it was the nomination was for everything.
I think it's great if you have like an author who has had like a really massive, sprawling, interconnected universe series career, and like maybe they're at the end of their writing career and they publish some new entry that makes the whole of their body of work eligible as a series. Like that can be a great way to honor that in the series category. But for writers who are still like earlier in their careers, I really hesitate about like, do I want to nominate? I would much rather nominate a sub-series.
Do we want to move on to short stories just because?
Can we? I've got to leave in like 20 minutes, and all my recommendations are going to be in the last categories.
Okay, sorry. Short. I have a lot of feelings about series, but short story.
I don't have any thoughts about short stories or novelettes, so feel free to skip me for those.
Okay.
I have like
we are
full
hoping
ballots.
and expecting we'll have lots of stories to nominate.
I don't know what the word count is on my favorites. I haven't had a chance to look that up yet. But I suspect that quite a few of the ones I'm going to mention are from anthologies that Ray is going to mention. So
might be.
Paul, do you want to get us started?
Sure. I'll try to go. Should I do novelette and short story or just short story?
What do we want to do? Do we want to do them together? Let's do both at the same time, which means you can start and I'm going to fix the banner situation.
Sure. I'm going to go through them as quickly as I can. So Uncanny Magazine had The Goldfish Man by Maureen McHugh that I loved. It's about a homeless woman trying to survive during the pandemic, and then she finds someone that can take her off the earth. There was a nightmare story that I still can't shake from my mind. It was called Synchronous Online from Shannon Scott. It was horrifying, but in a good way. The cute story of the year for me was Wanting Things by Cal Ritterford. It was from Clarksworld March. That is about a home and a toaster falling in love. So the AI of the toaster and the AI of the home fell in love with each other. I love that. There's one from Fantasy and Science Fiction from March called Nana by Carl Walmsley. And that one is just about AI and creating the person that passed away as an AI. And speaking of AI, that's going to be kind of a running theme for me. Lily the Immortal from Kylie Lee Baker. This was from Uncanny last year, and that was very relevant to us as YouTubers because it was about a content creator that died, and the platform actually owned the likeness of the person, and they made an AI version of that likeness to keep creating content. And it was about her girlfriend that was trying to move on, but she kept seeing her girlfriend's image being used online. So that was really good. Okay, and then novelette. Dancing Little Marionettes from Fantasy and Science Fiction from Megan Beadle, about marionettes.
What did you say the title of that was?
Dancing Little Marionettes.
Dancing Little Marionettes.
Yep. So it is a drama about the marionettes that the puppet master used and how one of them broke its leg. And so she got a new partner and they fell in love, but the old partner was jealous. What was great about it is you never really knew if the puppeteer was creating this story or if the marionettes were creating their story themselves. Murder by Pixel. This was out in December of Clarksworld by S.L. Huang. This is also on the Nebulas, and it is very relevant to AI, and it's about the responsibilities of AI and bullying and causing people to commit suicide. And within the story, there are a lot of real life links to real stories about AI, and that was really cool. Upstart by Liu Ban. This is from Clarksworld in December. I can see this doing well in the Chinese market. It won an award in 2021 in China, and I enjoyed that. To Embody a Wildfire Starling by Iona Dat Sharma. This is from BCS back in January. Is about a refugee getting out of prison and having to go back to where they used to live, but live with their captors. And the last one for novelette is The Direction of Clocks from Jess Levine. This is from Clarksworld, and it is about loneliness and traveling through deep space and trying to get away from the pain that you had with a breakup. So those are mine.
I think you just gave me my reading list.
Same, pretty much.
Same.
At least for novelettes, I have a pretty stacked short story palette, but like my novelettes are like needing a little bit of like fleshing out.
Yeah, can I just exhort you all to like go ahead and make Hugo nomination short fiction videos like of like your recommendations where you like post links to where we can go read them.
I mean, might be good.
Yeah. I need to prioritize reading short fiction this year so I can be prepared for 2024.
If we remember, it might be a good idea to list some of these short fiction titles specifically in the description after we're done.
Mm-hmm. Or make a separate document if the video
Yeah.
description is too long and link that. I can
Yeah.
work on that. Where Paul, you were done with
Paul
your
was
list,
done.
and Rachel? No? Kristen? No?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely have short stories I'm going to nominate, but I read most of them a long time ago and I don't remember, and I didn't make the time to figure out what they were ahead of this video. So I will try to make my own recommendation video for short fiction. But what I do have is recommendations for novelettes. I really, really enjoyed, I think probably my top choice is Time Box from the Memory Librarian anthology by Janelle Monáe. I thought that was so, first of all, just engaging, which is, you know, my first requirement. Like, am I enjoying it? Am I into it? Definitely. And then the kind of question and situation that it dealt with was just so interesting and so nuanced. It basically, it tells a story of these two women who, they're a couple, they're living together, but they're coming from different, basically, classes. Like, one of them is working super hard, going to school, like constantly exhausted, and the other is not having to do that, but she's an activist and she kind of like feels a little high and mighty for that. And then they discover, I don't want to tell the whole story, but they discover this like sci-fi kind of element that they interpret how to use it very differently, and the tension between them is just fascinating. So that one like stood out to me above all the others that I read this year. But then also I really liked the novelette. I assume it's a novelette from The Way Spring Arrives, and I wrote down the title because it's very long. A Brief History of Bainakan Disasters as Told in a Sinitic Language by Nian Yu, translated by Ruping Chen. And this one was just, it was super fun. It's like basically an alien invasion story, but told from the perspective of the aliens. And if it was told from the perspective of the humans, these aliens would be villains, but we're getting it from the perspective of the aliens, which is just super fun. I loved it. I thought it was great. So those are the two that I'm definitely nominating. There were some other novelettes in Memory Librarian that were also good, but Time Box to me stood out above all of them. So I'm going to stop there. Those are my recommendations.
Rhea.
Okay, so I have 4 short stories and some of, anyway, let's just go on. The first one I have is The Kaleidoscopic Visitor by Shaoni C. White. This was published in Uncanny Magazine issue 45, and it is essentially like a mix between climate fiction and also a trans coming of out narrative. It is essentially about this person who makes a like encounters a like an entity that is kind of a rift in reality, and they give them a wish essentially, and it's all about like them figuring out their identity. So that's on my list. And then another one I have is My Father Treats Meryl Like All the Women in His Life by Saswatu Chatterjee. This was in Anathema Magazine's issue 15. And it's essentially about this AI, kind of like similarly to Alexa or Siri, this kind of like domestic helper AI. And it is an interrogation of like sexism and misogyny and how that can be transposed to like an AI entity, which was very interesting. And then I have Baby I Love You by Zhao Haihong, translated by Elizabeth Hanlon, which was in the Way Spring Arrives anthology, one of my standout stories from there. And then finally, short story is Peeling Time Deluxe Edition by Tlotlot Samasebo from Africa Risen anthology. That was one of my standouts, so I'm going to be nominating that one. And then for novelettes, I have the Immaculate Ivory Tower by Li Huayi, translated by Nathan Ferris. This was in the Future Science Fiction Digest issue 15. So that's a novelette. Very interesting, this idea of like extracting resources from biological, like essentially there are these sort of like space whale corpses that are like stranded on various like reaches of the galaxy, and people are extracting extracting resources from those without fully realizing what they are doing. And then it's kind of like this, like, should people be meddling in things that they don't know anything about just because they can extract resources from them? So I thought that was really interesting. And then as with Kristen, I also really enjoyed Brief History of Bainakan Disasters from the Way Spring Arrives collection, so I'm going to be nominating that one as well. So those are my choices.
You reminded me, I think one of the shorter pieces in The Way Spring Arrives is Blackbird,
Yes,
which that's gonna make my short story list.
I'm probably also going to be nominating that one. I will just make a note of that.
I did something very unusual. I've never done it before, but I read that story twice from the anthology. I was like, it stuck with me.
Di?
I don't have anything.
I only have one story. I've read like just a handful of short stories this year, and most of them did not stick with me at all. One I read recently that did was recommended by Martha Wells on Mastodon, which is how I found it. It's called A Coney's Bees by Jessica Reisman, and it was published in Analog, but it's one of a list of stories that they have made available online. So there is like an online PDF version. I did put the link in the Hugo spreadsheet, so it's there. It is very short and very atmospheric and gently written, and there's not a whole ton of plot, so I don't know how much I can say about it without giving the whole thing away, but it's science fiction, and the protagonist is an AI biomatter printer whose job is to like print all, like 3D print all of the living organisms in this dome habitat, and her relationship with the humans who have come and colonized her dome habitat, and what happens when things start to fail.
What is the name of that one again?
A Coney's Bees, ACONIE '(s) bees, and the author is Jessica Reisman, REISMAN.
Awesome, thank you.
So that is my one recommendation. In short story, if we want to move on to novella and novel, I'm wondering, Rachel, how much time? Oh, Rachel's gone.
Yeah, I don't know if she left us
We
for
lost.
good or not.
I was going to offer to let Rachel go first and do all of her best novella and novel recommendations. Oh, she's back.
Oh.
Rachel, you're back.
Yep.
I know that you're short on time, so I was going to offer, if you want to do all of your novella and novel recommendations at once, just to make sure you have time.
Yeah, I might
before
need to
we
do
get to the end
that.
here. Yes,
Are we on to novella yet?
we are
Yes.
on to novella.
Yeah, we're on. We're on.
I need to make new banners. These banners are quite something. But yes, you may start talking while I work on the banners.
Okay. Novellas. So this is kind of a complicated category for me. There are things that I probably will nominate, but not a lot that I feel extremely strongly about. My top pick for this was Spear by Nicola Griffith, but I noticed it's a novel nominee with the Nebulas, which means it might be too long for novella.
Borderline for the Hugos. I think it could end up in either category.
Personally, I feel like it's a novella, so I might put it there. But yeah, Spear was one of my few like 5-star reads of 2022. I loved it. Not surprising because I really love Griffith's stuff, but also Of Charms, Ghosts, and Grievances by Alietta de Bodard. This is the second in this novella series, though I think they're pretty standalone. And it's kind of mystery, fantasy, romance. It was really, really good fun. Oh, Ron says that Nicola Griffith says that it's a novel.
Yeah, and Adri is
okay.
saying that it's too long for the Hugos, even with the leeway.
Oh,
I had seen that it was okay with the leeway, but I stand corrected.
Okay. My list also includes A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. I think it'll actually be a bit of a shock if this one doesn't make the list.
Yeah. I will be shocked if it doesn't.
Uncommon Charm. I'm blanking on the author's names. I didn't write it down.
Emily Berksley and Kat Weaver.
Thank you. You're going to nominate that one too, huh?
Yeah. I wonder why I know.
I have some conflicted feelings about the strengths and weaknesses of this particular novella, but I enjoyed it. I thought the tone of it, the writing of it was really good. And I was just thrilled to enjoy a novella that wasn't a Tor.com publishing
Yeah.
thing, you know? And I want more. Like, I want a sequel novella. So I figured that's enough to nominate it. Into the Riverlands by Nevo. I think that's eligible.
It is. It is.
Okay. I suddenly started doubting myself. It's like, when did
It
I
is
read
eligible.
that? I did really enjoy that. And then another one that I'm kind of iffy on, but I know a lot of people have been talking about it, is Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk. This is a rare novella I listened to on audiobook, and it surprised me with how much I enjoyed it. It was a little bit more like noir than I typically like, but it left an impression on me. So yeah. And that's it for me for novella.
Do you want to also do novels since we're running up?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Good.
Novel.
My list, I have probably more things that I want to read to nominate in this category. But
Oh, I didn't actually switch the banner. No one told me.
Oh, you did.
yeah, you did.
Now
I
you
just
did.
did right now.
Oh.
I only just noticed. I noticed because I noticed your face change. Like you went, wait.
Oh no, what's that? Go ahead, do novel, Rachel.
Okay, so obviously Spear by Nicola Griffith is going to be top of my list for this category, since we've established it's probably better in that one. I've got two like fantasy romances that I feel kind of weird nominating these for what I usually think of as a sci-fi award, but I freaking loved A Strange and Stubborn Endurance and A Taste of Gold and Iron. And I figured they're both fantasy secondary world enough to nominate.
Yes.
I also loved The Grief of Stones by Catherine Addison. A Half-Built Garden by Ruthanna Emrys, which one of the few like actual sci-fi things I read last year that got me thinking, you know. And I might consider Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse out of the things that I've read.
Wait, was Fevered Star last year?
I
Yes.
believe so. It's on my list of things I read.
It was last.
And we read it together.
I know, but
I know.
Last year is just like a time, like dilution thing. Like the year was never ending.
I also have my list of things that I really want to cram before nominations. Babel and Legends and Lattes are top of my list. Obviously, they're also on the Nebula shortlist. So 2 birds, 1 stone. And the Red Scholars Wake is probably the other one I will try to squeeze in. I have heard from Kelsey that the American print version might have an error, though.
Not corrected. If you buy the American print version now, it will be correct.
Okay. I might get it from the library, but I held off on getting it at all because I was really worried about that.
I will send
Right.
you some photos in the group chat because the book is currently supporting my laptop, but I got my Illumicrate version finally, and it is so pretty. I am so glad I finally got the box just for that book.
All right. So that's my list, and I do need to leave here in a couple minutes, so I'll say my goodbyes.
Yay, thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you guys. I'll see y'all soon.
See you.
Bye. Okay. So if we want to go back to novella and move on to Paul.
Sure. So novella. I will also say that Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk was a lot of fun. I had a good time reading that. Then I have a few from some magazines. So the one that I probably was my favorite is from Yugi Foster. It's published ominously. It is called The Art of Victory When the Game is All the World. This is from Fantasy and Science Fiction and magazine. It was from January and February, and it was phenomenal. It's basically these celestial beings playing God, but then messing with the people, and it's very good. Snowflake by Nick Wolven. Also, this one's from Asimov, actually. January, February. This was about a star that was a singer, but she had issues with her depression and mental problems, and they used AI to try to fix that. And I've actually been seeing that a lot in the news lately of people talking about that. And it was this whole thing about, is she still herself with this? And it was very interesting. Bishop's Opening by R.S.A. Garcia. This was from Clark's World, January. Phenomenal space opera novella. And then there's a few other novellas, but that's enough.
Great. Wonderful. Things I have not heard before. Yay. Kristen?
Yeah, so I'm kind of agreeing with Rachel that there were a lot that like they just don't stand out to me. But the one that I am sure that I want to nominate, that was my favorite novella this year, is Nebula Vibrations by Annie Carl. And I believe this is a self-publish, so I don't expect it to make it. But it was legit my favorite novella that I read this year. It's really short. It's about a woman who wakes up on a spaceship and doesn't know how she got there. Basically, she finds out she was kidnapped and is being asked to intervene in a situation to basically save everyone on the ship. And she's like, "What? Why would I do that?" And then there ends up being aliens and stuff, and it's super fun. Just I had a blast with this one, so I highly recommend checking that one out. And then my runners-up are A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers, but that's almost like I don't even know if I'm gonna bother nominating that because I expect it to make it. Like I might use my nomination slot for something else. And then I have Jade Setter of Jean-Lune by Fonda Lee, which was just super fun. I think very fan servicey prequel to the Greenbone saga. So those are the three that like I feel pretty confident I'm going to nominate. And then I have like just a bunch that I don't know how to decide which one rises to the surface for me personally. So I have Even Though I Know the End by Steel Poke, which I thought was good but not like amazing, which is how I feel about all of these. So I'm not going to say it again. I also enjoyed January 15th by Rachel Swirsky, which is kind of taking, I think, 4 different point of views about how a universal basic income might impact different kinds of people. Lucky Girl by M. Rickert is horror. It's like a Krampus story, which I thought was just really fun. I just had fun reading it. The Bruising of Kilwa by Nassim Jamnia, and What Moves the Dead by Kingfisher. Like it just, I thought they were good, but didn't blow me away. Like I think a lot of these, it's not like I'm struggling because I don't think they're poorly written. They just weren't my specific cup of tea. So I'm kind of still like wondering if I should like squeak a few more in, see if I can find something that just really stands out to me. So I have Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky that I still really want to get to. And then I think there were a couple others. I was very curious about Kundo Wakes Up and Let the Mountains Be My Grace by, I'm forgetting who that's by.
It's from
Francesca Tacci.
Francesca Tacci.
Yeah, that one looked really interesting, but I haven't been able to find it like at a library or anything. So
yeah, it's because it's like Neon Hemlock Press is like an indie like a publisher. They don't necessarily have as much reach. So you might be better off getting the ebook.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But I'm done if you want to go ahead, Ray.
Yes. So I have a few. So I have obviously Uncommon Charm by Emily Berksley and Kat Weaver from Neon Hemlock. I'm basically like it isn't the like none of my nominations is like that I'm kind of rooting for are necessarily ones that blew me away like fully, like are these the perfect examples of like the craft, but I think that they are ones that take risks, are kind of like have a fresh authorial voice and stuff. So I'm kind of like nominating based on the strength of that, just like, you know, doing something new. So Uncommon Charm is one. And then I also really liked Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk. I like, it could have gone very wrong for me because first of all, I am not a huge fan of noir, and second of all, I'm not a huge fan of like biblical, like world building that is very rooted in biblical stuff because of, you know, my upbringing. But like that somehow managed to win me over, and it didn't feel like it kind of built on the biblical references in such an interesting way that I really enjoyed it. So yeah, Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk, very much enjoyed. And then I'm going to be like probably depending if this does not shit the bucket on the like second half, I'm going to be nominating The Bruising of Kilwa because so far it has been really good. I've been really enjoying it. By Nassim Jamnia. And then I have a couple novellas from Neon Hemlock that I want to read just in case. Hopefully I will get to them before the nomination period ends. So All the Hometowns You Can't Stay Away From by Izzy Wasserstein is one. And then Empire of the Feast by Bendy Barrett is the other one. So those are also eligible, but I haven't read them yet. But I have them, so possibly before the month before the nomination period is over, I shall read them.
I want to just jump right back in and say I forgot to mention Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse. I started it. I need to finish it. That's one that I want to try to finish before the nominations are due.
Di?
Yeah, so most of the ones that I would like to see on the ballot have been mentioned. So even though I knew the end, I really enjoyed that. Prayer for the Crown Shy, The Bruising of Kiowa. Even I'm kind of with Kristen, even though it wasn't perfect and there were some things that I had I had some very specific complaints about pacing and the amount of content that the author was putting in to a novella. I thought that the ideas were really interesting, and I thought what they were trying to do was really worthwhile, and I liked the world building. So that is another one that I do plan on nominating, also because it's not Tor.com and we need non-Tor.com novellas there. And then one that hasn't been mentioned that I'm planning on nominating is Kate Elliott's Servant Mage. So it's her first novella, I believe. And that one I really liked. It does a lot of what Kate Elliott does that I enjoy in terms of world building and commentary and character work in a relatively short package. And I thought the way that it ended was really interesting. And then two that I want to read, or a few that I want to read before the nomination period closes. The new Singing Hills cycle song, novella, which I'm completely blanking on the name, Uncommon Charm, and then Let the Mountains Be My Grave from Neon Hemlock. So those three are ones that I want to try and finish before the end of April.
For me, I have, I guess, 3 novellas that are tentatively on my ballot right now. I am hoping to find some things that I like maybe more. So if I read enough things, this might get pushed off of my ballot. But Uncommon Charm, I think, is a pretty sure nominee for me because it had, like, the vibes were very specifically attuned to my taste. Alexandra Rowland had 3 self-published novellas out this year. I've only read one of them, Some by Virtue Fall, also very specifically sort of attuned to my taste because it is like fantasy Elizabethan theater stuff going on. But if I read the other 2 and like them better, I might nominate those instead. Those are all Over All the Earth, which is the Chant novella, and then the Lights of Ystrax Wood, which is the second novella in the new series that Some by Virtue Fall is the first book in. So I'm hoping to read both of those. Tread of Angels, also tentatively on my list. I felt middling about it in terms of there's some things about it that I didn't personally enjoy. Comparing it to her novels, I feel like I've read the first books in both of her adult series, Tread of Lightning and Black Sun. Feel like it has some of the same weaknesses in character development, where the characters feel sort of like fantasy fiction stock character tropes, but it also has some of the strengths of the world building. And the thing for me about Tread of Angels, I remember when Rebecca Roanhorse won the Astounding Award for her short fiction. The story she'd published that also won Best Story was Welcome to Your Authentic Indian Experience. And that story was like a gut punch. And that is a quality of her writing that I don't feel like her novels that I've read have recaptured thus far, and that I think Tread of Angels has to an extent. And I don't particularly enjoy it, but I think it delivers, you know, a sort of a unexpected, mildly gut-wrenching ending that is maybe a quality that Hugo voters will appreciate about it. So that one is, I would normally not nominate a book that I personally only gave 3 stars for Hugo, but that's definitely on my list right now. And then in terms of other things that I am still hoping to read, The Language of Roses by Heather Rose Jones from a small press. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling with, I think, an aromantic protagonist. And I have meant to pick that book up so many times in the last few months, and it just hasn't happened, but I will absolutely read it by the time nominations close. Even though I knew it, The End and A Prayer for the Crown Shy are also both books on my TBR. Similarly to some other people, I think A Prayer for the Crown Shy, I'm sort of assuming it'll be on the list and I don't have to read it before nominations close.
Totally.
Now I'm gonna be laughing if it doesn't make the list, because everyone is like, yeah, this is like a shoe-in.
Someone else is gonna nominate it. I'm fine.
It's gonna be fine.
It misses it by like 5 votes.
It's gonna be okay because Becky Chambers won last year, so
I mean,
she'll
like,
be fine.
it would be fine, but I would just be laughing just looking at the long list, like pray for the Crown Shy not making it, because like people were like, yeah,
everyone assumed everyone else was nominating it, right? Someone else said in the comments basically the same thing about Babel, where it was a ways ago, but like that's another one where I'm assuming it's going to be nominated and I don't have to read it before the shortlist comes out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Even though it's absolutely on my TBR, I'm absolutely going to read it. But I do this, and it does not always work for me.
I think with Babel it will, though, because it's
it
been
will.
like
I feel like people are talking about it like it's the book.
But here's the thing: like, I think R.F. Kuang, like, she won the Astounding Award, and she has been nominated before, but I don't think she's a Hugo darling in the same way.
Not necessarily a Hugo darling, but
I also,
for example, Poppy War was nominated.
But
the
thing is, I don't know if Babel is necessarily a Hugo book.
I heard so many people talking about it just in conversations at Worldcon last year.
Yeah.
Really.
It was also like sold out on like 2 separate book vendors by the end of ChiCon.
I think it's gonna help that the Hugos are in China.
Well, not necessarily, because well,
The book
like
is not
like
available in China, is it?
I don't know if it is.
not necessarily, but also like there is a kind of like how do you say, like not necessarily like just because our Kwang is of Chinese descent doesn't necessarily mean that non-diasporic Chinese people will nominate her work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like it will appeal because it's very critical of colonialism and stuff.
Yeah, but it's also like critical of it in a very British setting.
True.
I
Like-
feel like
like
it's the
in
sort of
terms of,
thing
like-
that Western readers might nominate because they think
Yeah.
it's relevant because WorldCon is in China, as opposed to something that I mean, having not read it, because I'm assuming it will be nominated.
Yeah, I mean, I am planning on nominating it as someone who has read it.
Okay.
We have clearly moved on to novel. This was semi-intentional. But if we want to talk about some books other than Babel, I would like to give Paul a chance to talk.
Yeah, so Babel was probably the top of my list. It's the best book I read last year, and probably top 20 book I've ever read. And I asked people, hey, what book should I read for the Hugos? And Di actually replied, just like, hey, you got to read Babel. So, like Rachel, A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland. Even though the fantasy aspect of it is so small, it's it's still considered like
It's in a
fantasy.
fictional world. I consider anything that's in a fictional world automatically fantasy, regardless of whether or not.
Yeah. Also, with her Spear by Nicola Griffith was amazing. I think Legends and the Lattes is going to get nominated. I loved it. Everyone loved it. I don't think that people would take it serious enough to actually vote for it to win, but it was so good. And then I'll go with Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel for my last one. All great books.
I feel like I haven't heard a lot of SFF people talk about Sea of Tranquility. Is that just me living in the wrong information bubble?
Well,
Super popular.
a lot of SF people that has read it thought that the SF elements was weak or were weak.
Yeah, I think it's like it has like the Venn diagram isn't a full circle, but it's like it has like a bigger emphasis, I think, on the literary fiction side of like the book fandoms.
Mm-hmm.
But like I think Emily St. John Mandel usually has like a crossover appeal.
Right. Kristen, do you have books?
Yeah, so my standout book of the year was Goliath by Tochi Onyebuchi. That's the only book that I feel strongly about nominating. I thought it was just really great. It was artistic, it was intelligent, it was prescient, it was rewarding. Like, this is also a book that I kind of wanted to make a review and I never got around to it, but it's one of those books that I think intimidates people because everyone says like, oh, it's just so difficult to read, or you don't know what's going on, or it's just whatever. But I went into it expecting that experience and I didn't have that experience. I thought it was very readable. It was maybe hard to keep track of every single thread the whole time, but it didn't matter. Like, it was a great ride, just ride. And you get to the end and like there's all of these, I almost feel like not Easter eggs, but like if you think about it, like you can figure out what things mean and it's really rewarding. And especially if you have a religious background and you know a lot about the Bible, because there's a lot of biblical references, it's very rewarding. So it was hands down the best book I read last year. My second choice would probably be Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, because I love that series so much. I love the writing style. It's so vibey. It works for me.
That's another one that I am assuming I don't have to read until it's nominated, because it will surely be an either novel or series, one of the two at least.
Yeah. I mean,
was Harrow the Ninth a novel nominee? I know Gideon the Ninth was.
Yes,
yeah.
I would not have read it if it was not a nominee.
Yeah, that was my pick for last year. I thought Harrow was amazing. I think out of the whole series so far, Harrow has been the best. I am less excited to nominate None of the Ninth just because I feel like it didn't live up to Harrow for me, but I have very high hopes for Electo next year. But anyways, yeah. So then after that, it's the same issue I had with the novellas where I'm just not super excited about any other books. Like there's a lot of books I'm considering, but none of them are really standing out. So I'm looking at The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean. This was a surprise to me. I actually ended up really enjoying it. It has dark fairy tale vibes, although I don't know if you could like really classify it as a dark fairy tale. It has very morally gray characters. It was a lot of fun. Station Eternity by Mira Lafferty was another surprise for me. It was kind of a murder mystery in space, and I ended up just having a lot of fun with it. It was entertaining. Siren Queen by Niveau is almost definitely going on my ballot. Actually, it was just really good. I love Niveau's writing. It's so lyrical and beautiful. It was a great story. I really like Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reed. I don't know if it's going to go on my ballot, but that was another one where it's like this nice dark fairy tale, but it's also really grappling with some really intense trauma. So there's definitely like trigger warnings for various kinds of abuse. But it also had like some escapist qualities too. Like there was like this total fantasy romance going on. It was a lot of fun. And then I'm also considering The World We Make by N.K. Jemisin, which N.K. Jemisin is one of my favorite authors ever. But this particular duology is probably my least favorite thing that she's written. That said, it's still like Jemisin and amazing. So when I compare Jemisin to Jemisin, it's not as good. But when I compare Jemisin to like everything else that I read this year, it's still like top of the line. So I'm not really sure out of that list what is going to end up in my ballot, but that's kind of what I'm considering right now.
Wonderful. Rhea.
Siren Queen by Niveau is definitely going on my ballot because like this was kind of a sleeper hit for me because like I have loved pretty much all of the things Niveau has written that I have read. The only thing that I haven't read from them yet is the Great Gatsby retelling, which is on my TBR to be read at some point.
Oh, so good.
But like this is kind of like if you like stories that are basically like low fantasy, like sort of urban fantasy stories with Forstian deals of the devil, where basically like movie starlets make deals with studio executives in order to appear in movies and in order to basically gain immortality through being in movies that are being viewed by people, and the more that they are viewed by people, the more immortality they can get, essentially. And it's all about like deconstructing ideas of like for example like the racist and colonialist history of Hollywood, like what types of hoops like marginalized people had to jump through in order to even have a chance at getting at some of these roles, and these ideas of typecasting and stereotyping and etc etc. And it's just so good, and it's kind of the thing that creeps up on you. Like this was one of those books where I was like, while I was reading it, I was like, okay, not sure, but then I kept thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking about it. So this has just been like living rent free in my brain ever since. So yeah, this is definitely going on my ballot. And then things that I'm considering, A Taste of Gold and Iron by Alexandra Rowland. Really enjoyed this for the anxiety representation, for the queer representation. However, I have since then talked with people because this is heavily inspired by specifically the Ottoman Empire. The world building is very heavily inspired by like Turkish like culture, and it kind of leans into very imperialistic tropes and doesn't necessarily question them all that much, which is understandable because it also written from the point of view of royalty. But like there are things that make me kind of ponder if I should nominate it. But even though it was one of my favorite books of last year, and then I have on my TBR that I'm going to be reading this month, A Strange and Stubborn Endurance by Frost Meadows. So if this is good, might end up on my ballot. And that's it for me.
Di?
Yeah, so I have, like I mentioned, Babel is for sure going on my ballot. Some other things that I'm considering putting on, Nettle and Bone, I'm actually pretty sure I'm going to put on as well. It was the first T. Kingfisher I read, and I really enjoyed the world building and the characters and how she incorporated kind of that fairy tale aspect into the story. One that I don't think is going to be on the short list, but I'm going to nominate anyway, is The Monsters We Defy by Leslie Penelope. This is a 1920s book set in Washington, D.C. with an all-black cast of characters, and it's a heist, and it's paranormal. It's really fun. I really loved it. It is what I had... It's more similar to vibes that I had hoped Trouble the Saints would be. But The Monsters We Defy is just so much fun. I've been trying to get people to read it in various Discords, so I highly recommend it, even if you aren't going to nominate it. I also kind of want to nominate The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, because that was just, like, for me, the cozy fantasy that I loved from last year. I really enjoy the characters and what the authors is doing. Yeah, New Elise on Life, you appreciate The Monsters We Defy. And then some books that I haven't read yet, but I am meaning to. Sorry, I'm like now looking. I'm hoping to finish the Dandelion Dynasty book. So I mean, I don't think I'm going to finish them before nomination period closes, but maybe I'll try and finish potentially the last book on that series.
What is the final book called?
Speaking Bones.
Yes, The Speaking Bones.
Which book are you on, Di?
I finished Wall of Storms, and that was the one that convinced me to keep going in the series, because I did not like the...
See, if you want to buddy read the next two books in the series, I can buddy read them with you, because I need to start on Veiled Throne.
I might do that. Yeah, I didn't really... The Grace of Kings for me was mid, and I really liked Wall of Storms, but it did nothing to sway me from my belief that The Grace of Kings was a 600 word or 600 page prologue to the main story. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong, but also, like, Grace of Kings has some moments. Anyway, Speaking Bones, I think Speaking Bones is eligible for the best novel.
Yeah, Speaking Bones is eligible. And then the last thing that I'm interested in nominating, I don't know if I will though, is The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. This was a surprise for me.
Like, I've been curious about that one, and I haven't heard any reviews.
It is basically You Got Mail in this fantasy world that is like ours, but different in like weird ways. And you follow Mercy, whose family runs an undertaking business, because in this world, the town is set on like the borderlands between like their world and like this mystical, magical, like where the gods are, or where the gods lived, and there are zombies. And so they're in charge of like preparing the bodies for or like for sea burial and stuff. And so she's dealing with her family's drama because her brother doesn't actually want to take over the family business, and she does, but it's supposed to be go to the son. And then Hart is a marshal, and he's a demigod. And so like it is You Got Mail. It is very blatant about being inspired by You Got Mail, but it surprised me by how much I liked it. Like I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did. So yeah, so that, and then some books that I would like to read. I got rid of my 2022 release shelf on Goodreads, and I'm kicking myself for doing that. I know there's some other stuff that I want to read that came at Fevered Star. I want to read potentially. I know there's others, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
That is.
But yes, please read The Monsters We Defy. That, like, if that's the one I would recommend over everything else, just because it was so much fun and I loved it a lot.
The pajama cat is back. Hold on. Come back, pajama cat.
I would show off my kitties, but they're currently sleeping in the guest bedroom.
You've been scooped. You've been scooped. Mwah.
Hermes is behind the dresser, so he's not making any appearances.
She has been scooped. I dropped my notes on the floor in order to scoop her. I want to add a few things to the novel conversation. Hold on.
I'm just amazed how extensive your notes are.
Well, I've been writing down everything you guys have been saying this whole time, or at least like 50% of it, because I want recommendations in many of these categories. Novel is the one category where I have enough things that I have liked enough to nominate that I don't need to read more, even though I want to read more. So I'm trying to focus on other categories, like things that are eligible for the Lodestar, Astounding, Novella. But Nettle and Bone has already been discussed, but I am always super happy whenever a fairy tale novel has a chance at a Hugo Award, and this one was a really good one for me. And then the other one that I'm probably hyping up, wanting to hype up the most, is The Red Scholar's Wake. If you have the American print edition, do make sure your copy has chapter 16. If you do not, they will replace it for you. But that one is one that is probably at a disadvantage because it came out so late in the year and did not get like a major publisher in the US at all. So if you're in the US, you're like not even going to find it in a print bookstore. And it came out in December. So it would be an uphill battle to try to get it on the short list. But
I Believe in Us.
I Believe in Us. Yes, I Believe in Us as well. Red Scholar's Wake is the lesbian Vietnamese space pirates book. It's the first novel in the Julia universe, which makes it an event in my book. And it is a romance novel. I find that Aliette de Bodard's writing and world building in this book and in the Julia universe is more dense than I generally associate with like books that are marketed as romance, but it still works for me. And I think it makes it possibly a romance book that will have more appeal with the sci-fi fans of the Hugo voting populace. That is my theory, at least. Some other things that have been mentioned that I have enjoyed, or one other thing, A Strange and Stubborn Endurance. I did like that one. A couple other things that haven't been mentioned. The Spare Man by Mary Robinette Kowal. That's another space mystery. And given that it's Mary Robinette Kowal, I would think that it would have a fairly decent shot, but I haven't actually been seeing much buzz for it.
Yeah, that's true.
Did someone say something?
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. I haven't heard much about it either.
Yeah, same. Like, aside from my like circle of like booktube SFF people who are Mary Robinette Kowal fans, I have not heard anyone really talk about The Spare Man.
I personally enjoyed it more than The Calculating Stars. It was better for me.
That's actually like
it
because
makes you want to drink cocktails.
I will say
It In the comments, Ron is saying it makes you want to drink cocktails.
I don't even drink alcohol, and I enjoyed it more than the Calculating Stars. I think
mean,
because
then
it
it
is
might be
more
good
of
for me.
a distant future sci-fi with, you know, more of that futuristic world building that I enjoyed, even though it was on, you know, in a very closed environment on a space cruise ship. You saw some, you know, interesting world building within that confined setting, and the characters were just so lovable. Sorry, I have the camera at a sort of weird angle because I'm still
because we have to see Jammy.
We have to see Jammy. We must cut off my entire face so we can see the Jammy cat. Is it okay if I keep talking about books while not showing my face at all, just showing the cat? Okay.
Yes.
But
Jammy.
another one
Jamboree.
that I have not seen much buzz for that I thought was definitely worthy was Saint Death's Daughter by C.S.E. Cooney. I did a review of that one on my channel as my Halloween review. It is such a very specific vibe, this book, that is so hard to describe. It is sort of it gets comparisons to Gideon the Ninth and the Locked Tomb series, not just because it's a necromancy book, but also a bit because of the sort of over the top writing style. But I've talked about with the Locked Tomb books, I might like this series so much better if the vibes were just different. Saint Death's Daughter is the exuberant, weird necromancy book with the right vibes for me. It has all sorts of elaborate world building. C.S.E. Cooney's writing, if you've ever read anything she's written, is just very lush and dense, kind of similar-ish to reading Catherine M. Valenti's work, just in terms of the prose style.
I'm sorry. There's a sighting of a Hermes.
A sighting of a Hermes. Hello, void.
Unfortunately, I am too terrified to move because he will jump somewhere and go away. So this is all you will get. Maybe he will deign to come closer, but
I beheld the void. Jeremy, did you behold the void? That's your friend Hermes.
Kelsey, is Saint Death's Daughter YA?
It is not. It is very adult. It's a coming of age story for the main character that takes place over a number of I'm not sure exactly how many years. So like she starts the book as a teenager. But the writing style is not YA. It is the first in a series. So it's the next book. She's going to be adult for the whole book. It is not a YA series. I would not recommend it to a teen reader. I would not have gotten along with it as a teenager. The writing is too, I mean, teenagers can absolutely read dense, weird writing, but it certainly wasn't what I liked as a teen. Thematically, it's also, yeah, it's one of those coming of age stories that's not a YA coming of age story, if you know what I mean. The other thing that I read recently that I've not seen any real buzz for is The Path of Thorns by A.G. Slater, which is the most recent standalone book in the Sourdough universe. It is a dark gothic fantasy, also some necromancy, very out of character for me to be recommending all of these necromancy books. However, these two were both the sort that are sort of targeted at me. This is the sort of thing where I get very close to reading things that are maybe sort of horror. Path of Thorns is very dark, about, you know, generations of a family and how it messes people up by being very toxic. And the protagonist has come to this estate to be a governess, but she has her own deep, dark secrets and missions and reasons for being there. And, you know, what is she there to do, and will she go through with it? There's werewolves, there's witchcraft, there's just a smidge of necromancy, not a ton, just a smidge. The author's note described the idea for the book as having come from, like, what if Jane Eyre met Frankenstein? And I can sort of see how we got to point B from point A. We're talking in the comments about Kelsey's goth era. Yes, this is my goth era. Again, I don't know that I see the Path of Thorns being, like, broadly popular enough to actually make the list, but I will probably nominate it. So that is the end of the things I've read for best novel. Things that are on my TBR that I definitely want to read. Legends and Lattes more for the Astounding Award than the novel category. I've got Siren Queen out from the library. Taste of Golden Iron is also high on the TBR. A few others that I own. The Book of Gothel, which is a Rapunzel retelling.
That came out last year?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Damn, last year was long.
Like
half of the things that are eligible came out in, like, February, and I have already completely written them off as 2021 releases because last year just, like, wouldn't end.
A River Enchanted, also a fairy tale-ish thing, I think. I think A Half-Built Garden was already mentioned by someone else. That's on my TBR. I own a copy of that one, and The World We Make. And The Daughter of Dr. Moreau was also last year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a lot. Plus, reminder
Not
that
all
YA
of them
middle
will
grade
make
books are also eligible in Best Novel. If your favorite book of the year happened to be YA or middle grade, feel free to nominate it in Best Novel.
I will say, though, like, is like, out of all of the gothic fairy tale vibe things, I will say that probably Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher has the biggest chance, just because of like the Ursula Vernon being like a.
Well, it was also my
I mean,
favorite. It was one of my 5-star reads, and I had very few of them.
Yes, but I mean, I feel like people might also be nominating it in terms of, like, because they want to see it on the ballot as well, maybe.
Right.
Has Ursula Vernon ever been nominated for Best Novel?
I don't think she's had an eligible work for Best Novel. Well, I don't
That
think
cannot possibly be true. All of the indie published ones have been eligible for Best Novel.
Okay, I don't think she had hit it big within Hugo voters with her, because I think World of the White Rat was the first. Like, we had that and A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking.
Interesting.
And also, like, the horror novels would have been eligible in Best Novel as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I like, we want Ursula to regale us. We want Ursula to regale us with more slime mold facts.
Right,
Yes.
and if it comes with a Hugo win for a fairy tale novel, I will be all for it. I am always hoping for a Hugo win for a fairy tale novel. That is my thing that I am pulling for always.
So you are pulling for a fairy tale win of any kind.
Yes.
And I am pulling for the Year of Chainsaw Man.
So it looks like Ursula Vernon won a Hugo for Digger.
Okay.
Oh.
But that was graphic story, not Best Novel.
True.
I love Digger. I need to reread Digger. Recommendation for Digger. It's a webcomic. I think
Have-
it's still free to read online.
I think so. Have we actually managed to get through all of the categories
I
in
think we
3.5 hours?
Oh my god, yes. So I had thought we might have time at the end to do a bit of reaction to the Nebula shortlist, but maybe not.
Yeah, it's 11:30 p.m. So I was thinking of I might want to
think
get
we're
a snack.
done.
Yeah.
Personally,
I need to eat lunch. It's like 2:30 now.
I need to eat and watch one episode of Crash Course in Romance, which is the latest K-drama fixation that I have. Not SFF, just fun.
Wait, which is it?
Crash Course in Romance. It's all about the private schooling industry in Korea. All these cram schools and elite teachers making millions of dollars a year because elitism and like people needing to get into elite schools and not being able to do it in the public school system alone. And also romance. Anyway, maybe we can do the outros and start moving towards sleepy times, at least some of us.
Right. Outros. New to my moderating duties. The outro is
what's coming up? Where can we find you? What's coming up? And so forth.
Paul, is there anything you're looking forward to in the next month, and where can we find you?
So my whole name is on my BookTube channel, so just search for.
Also, our guests are both, or their channels are linked in the video.
Oh yes, thank you. I appreciate that. No, I just want to say thanks. I appreciate the invite, and I had a good time.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Kristen?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me at my channel, which actually you might not find me there, but hopefully I'll be there in the future. Yeah, this has been super fun. I love talking about this stuff. I love hearing what everyone's thinking about with their Hugo ballot. So I don't think there's anything that I can tell you to look forward to at the moment myself.
Rhea?
Yes. Talking is hard. You can find me at my channel, The Bookfinch, and I should be coming back from a hiatus in these next 2 weeks, hopefully with an early year reading wrap up with the January and February reading, and I should also be kickstarting the Swords and Sorcery book club sometime in the next 2 months. I have been reading all the feedback, and I now just need to find the time to implement all of it. And yeah, that's it for me.
Sorry, I clicked away. I have to come back. Di?
Yeah, you can find me at Bookish Di. I should have my February reading wrap up in the next day or so. And then I also should finally be posting the HarperCollins books I read during the strike video soonish. Both of those are filmed. One of them is edited. I just haven't gotten around to editing the other and posting either of them.
And me. I'm the Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm here on YouTube. I'm on TikTok. I'm still sadly on Twitter. I'm also on Mastodon. My next video should be a series review. Let's hope that goes well and is ready to post soon. Are we ready to say goodbye?
Yeah.
Yes. Have a very happy Sunday.
Bye. Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.